Yes, and it was witnessed by a lot of other tenants too.
Interesting.
So, and you know, they vouched for me that I was getting attacked, and nothing happened. The police did what they could, and it just seemed sort of like this unspoken law that they didn't want to mess up the landlord getting his rent. And
they who?
The police, kind of, they didn't want to do more. Like, there are two types of orders of protection. There's a stay-away order of protection, and there's another order of protection where if you violate it, it's the equivalent of, like, you know, having a parking ticket. It's not taken very seriously. Like, husbands and wives, apparently. The police explained this to me later on, the female officers who were kind of apologizing for the system. It's the kind of restraining or order of protection that can exist when people live in a house together. So they didn't want to put a more of an order of protection, a stay-away order of protection, so that everyone could continue to live in the house. And I get that, you know, you don't want someone's housing to be at jeopardy, but if you can't keep your hands to yourself, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to live with other people.
Did you address the landlord directly about the problem?
Very much, yes. And so did the other tenants in the house.
Well, I have a question. Why wouldn't, that sounds like assault to me if it's a
physical
crime. Why wouldn't that be an arrestable offense? Not a protection order to me says, okay, stay away from me.
Yeah.
And so you have to do that or you do or don't. Once it goes down into actual assault, to me that's an arrestable offense, and the police would be the ones to take charge, take over.
Yeah, that's very true, and they did arrest him. And I had the same question. The police officers told me, unless you have unless you are in the hospital like hooked up to tubes, it's not assault. Even people who've had black eyes, it's harassment in the second degree because of New York State law.
Can I also add something?
Yes,
which is just that I've been in a similar situation, and I've heard about other situations similar to this, and in my case it was just lucky that I also found a lot of pushback from the police, from the New Paltz Police Department, just especially from one officer who I was assigned to work to get an order of protection with, and he was kind of he was kind of blowing me off.
See, I didn't feel that the police were blowing me off. I felt that they were frustrated themselves, that they couldn't do more.
Well, that might have been why he was kind of ducking my calls and stuff like that. And it's also just like, you know, it's a messy system, because in my case it was like, you know, there were no witnesses, but nevertheless, I was just lucky to have been enrolled at the school at the time, because they were the ones who ended up putting an order of protection as long as that person was attending school.
Yeah.
So even though it happened off campus, so it was like I was living off campus, and this all should have been handled by the New Paltz Police, but I ended up going to the school because I wasn't getting help from them.
Yeah. No,
And I did end up, I didn't get any response from my landlord when I emailed him or her about it, and neither did my mom, and so I just moved.
I get it. That's what I did too. I contacted the landlord several times. He did not reply to me, and when he did get back to me, it was he picked up the phone accidentally, not realizing it was me calling, and he sort of treated it as though, like, well, he has a lot of things to do. Like, he's working on a house, he's working on another house. It's like, okay, but this is not like a sandwich you have to finish eating. This is like a big problem. Like, do you understand the kinds of things that are happening on your property? I didn't think that New Paltz was that kind of it was actually directly in the village. This is not that kind of town. You know, I just don't want it to be that kind of town. Do you understand, like, who you're renting to? And it was very frustrating, I think, for the police, because they kept looking at me and saying, like, can you talk to the landlord? And I kept being like I did, and he seems like a really respectable person. Why is he not? And then they would just respond with, girl, you gotta move. Like, and
there was nothing they could do.
There was nothing I could do, or they
Can I recognize Ed, because I think he might have something to add?
Yes.
I appreciate you sharing this with us during public comment, and this is public comment. And sometimes you wind up with a dialogue going on. It clearly is a very important issue, and I think, look, in light of this being brought to our attention, I think one of the things that we should do at one of our next meetings is reach out to the New Paltz Police Department since we are a landlord-tenant council, and have somebody come from the police department and talk about what some of their frustrations have been
That's good.
in regards to tenant-landlord disputes, and see if there's anything that they can offer as suggestions that we could then bring to the village.
Could you please make a motion to put that on the next agenda?
We don't have to make a motion to do that, we can just do that.
Okay, alrighty.
I don't want to,
Okay, relaxed
I
about
don't
it.
think that it's an important issue, I absolutely do, but it is public comment.
Yeah.
And we've heard the public comment. We could probably talk about this for 2 hours.
Yeah, easily.
But I would, and I would rather have someone from the police department come speak to us addressing these specific types of issues, because I'm sure it's clearly not the only case that's going on. So.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did you lose money from that?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a lease with the landlord?
No, I didn't have a lease.
Can I, we're going to set up a protocol, we're going to try and do that tonight, I would like to ask you to come back with this at our next meeting, and we'll make sure that if you would leave your information with Alex, or text it directly to me, whichever.
Oh, we know how to find her.
Yeah, okay, good. All right. I'd like to make sure that you get whatever we have set up for people to make applications for help to us, as well as have had the conversation with the police to see what we can do. Maybe you have leases and paperwork that you could bring to us that we can maybe offer solutions that you hadn't thought of that might be financial and not necessarily justice, but it may help. And I think that I would like to make sure that we don't let this look dismissed. But we don't have
it's probably not a single event.
Right, and we don't.
We need to establish a protocol for what.
We don't have the protocol yet to do it appropriately, but I want you to come back next month. I want to make sure you do.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Yep, you're doing it right.
I'll make a motion
Julie?
that we close the public hearing.
Can you do me a favor and just write your phone number on the top of that for me?
Yes.
Or your, whatever contact
public
you'd like me to do.
Absolutely.
What did you say?
I
I'll make a
will.
motion that we close the public comment,
I'll second that.
just to keep the meeting moving along.
Everybody in favor say aye. Everybody say no? Anybody say no? Thank you. Public comment is now closed. Thank you, dear.
Sorry, I just need the pen.
So the next thing I believe on the list was, I asked us to have a meeting about cameras, but since there's nobody here asking to use them right now, I make a motion that we move the second item on the agenda, which was the Perchin presentation, up to the first, and then we make the next thing the issue about cameras.
Well, the second item is the cameras. The Perchin was the fourth.
Let's just do it.
Well, he didn't show up, so
Okay.
I just want to move the
Their
presentation down. Somehow I've scrambled my minutes, but Jonathan, would you like to step forward and tell us about Perchin, please?
Thank you guys for letting us come and address you tonight. It means a lot that you recognize us in the community so far. I'm Jonathan Costa, representing Perchin. This is Rona Bork as well, with the company.
Hi.
For those of you that are not aware, Perchin is an off-campus housing listing company that works as kind of a communication forum for landlords and potential off-campus renters to get together and make connections. It's very unique in that it's, first of all, free for all parties involved. Most of these systems either charge a user to use for the services, or the property managers have to pay, and it's not a nice way to go about it. But we've got a system that works, and we make it free for all the major parties to play with, which is nice. Unlike other options out there, it's not only searchable for the renters. That's the big thing. I mean, being able to filter your results and find out what you want, it puts some power in the hands of the renter to find what they need when they want to use it, which is pretty nice. And on the other side, from the property manager point of view, it allows them to quickly and easily list their properties, their different units within the properties, photos, descriptions, the whole breakdown of everything they offer, and make it available on one clear playing field for everybody to see and understand. So it's a very nice tool that, again, not only is free, but it's very easy to use for all. So that's the general overview. Do you guys have questions about the system so far?
I'm like kind of expert at it at this point. So
I know you are.
I actually was more interested in your, I think a lot of the landlords are familiar with how it will work for them. If not, please feel free to ask Jonathan questions, but I would really like to know, I thought that my point in asking to invite you was because I think that the tenants themselves could, I'd like to know if you have ideas for how we can educate the tenants on how to use the service, other than you've got signs everywhere, and obviously it's starting to work very well.
Yes, that's a very good question. Thank you for
but
asking.
It's a very non-biased platform. It's equal. I think both the tenants and the landlords both benefit from it.
Yes.
Fairly equally, and I thought that was a good reason to present it here.
Absolutely it is. It's a very fair system, but there are two things that are important about this. One, the promotion to get the students and the off-campus renters, because it's not just students, there are many parties in the off-campus rental market aware of the system. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're working with on-campus representatives to spread the awareness. There was actually an article published about us by the New Paltz Oracle, the on-campus newspaper today.
Nice.
So you can search that online and see, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to read that article and find out more. But really the most important thing is having a supply, so to speak, of properties for the students to see. And the off-campus renters to see. If there's only a small portion of listings on the site, it's not going to be as valuable to the community as it would be if there was a huge collection of properties. Right now, or listings I should say, right now we have just over 300 listings in New Paltz, which is very nice. But I'm pretty sure that it should be at least doubled. And that's important not only for the property managers who want to make their properties known to the student in the off-campus markets, but it's also important for the students so they can have the balanced power in the whole situation and be able to search the community and find the best option for themselves. So the issue that we're noticing right now is the apprehensiveness from some landlords. And just to get on the system. And I don't think it's because they don't want to be a part of this. It's just that they're not sure of change and they're not really sure what this is. So one of the things that we would ask this board to do, if possible, is to just spread the word that this is a free system and we're here to help. And we want to enhance the collaboration between these two parties and enhance the communication opportunities here that we can take advantage of to make this more of a cohesive system in this community. Yes.
How do you? Did you just sell advertising on a website? Is that how you guys make?
Yes,
money?
that's,
okay.
Yep.
And that's how you keep it free?
Yes.
Okay.
Do
Right.
the users of your site have the ability to rate or provide feedback on the landlords or the apartments that they're renting, so that way some of the problem landlords we can try and root out?
Yep. Yep.
Problem tenants also.
Right now there's not a system for problem tenants, but there is a system, I say that loosely, with tenants that don't have a good relationship with property managers. That's not there right now. But what we do offer is a very fair, unbiased way for the users, the renters, to review the properties. And I'd be happy to talk on an offline basis about how that works with anybody that's interested. But it's basically a 5-star rating system that allows people to just come in there and say what they need to, but it's not a random thing where anybody can do it. The system has to be validated by the property manager. So the property manager is going to have to validate who the prospects are, or the people are, and ensure that they are a member of they were a lessee of the property. But once that happens, there's a pretty unbiased way to make that happen that works for us so far. We're actually, yep.
I have one thing here. We actually are in New Paltz for how long? A month?
Not barely.
I think we came here a month ago. We don't open a site, a college, till we have enough listings to offer. So I think when we had 100 or 150, we said, okay, we'll open New Paltz. Because otherwise, what are we going to have? We're going to have a site flooded with either one or the other, usually. Usually it's too many students. So we're very new here in New Paltz. And so the review system will not operate till next year.
Okay.
In other words, we open it for a period of time and say, we want your reviews. But at this point in time, we're so new here, there's no point. But it is on the site. If you go on the site, you can see it, I believe. Is it correct? You can see
Yes,
the page.
yeah.
So you can see what we're talking about. I mean, we give ratings for cleanliness and things of that nature, and how you receive the property, things like
You just don't
that.
have an adequate sample size to provide data yet.
Not yet. No.
We're very, very new here.
Yes. Question.
So I did go on your site, I see that you're over by Vassar. What do you have, probably 15 schools you're in right now?
There's about 17, I think, including New Paltz right now. Yep.
Have you spoken with the college? Because the college has their bulletin board, which I'm sure you're fully aware of.
Yes. With which college? I'm sorry.
New Paltz?
No, we have not gone directly to the school yet. That is on our list of ways to go. But you know, before you approach an institution like this, you need to come with a supply of relevant offerings. So, yeah.
I understand what you're trying to do. You're a listing agency for houses. I don't know if it's this board's job to promote that.
It's not a listing agency in the sense of like a real estate agent, but it's a form. Yes. Oh, sure.
That's not the job. You're asking for us to spread the word. The word's going to get out because you're standing here in front of us right now. But I don't really think that this is the purpose of this board.
I actually invited him because during my conversation, and actually asked the board's thoughts on it before I invited him. I invited him because you're actually planning community events and things on campus and other things to bring landlords and tenants together to educate them how to do things that the mission goes beyond the listing service. Otherwise, it wouldn't have brought it here.
That's appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
That's appropriate,
Right.
and I'm fine with that. And I'm fine with you being here. I see the signs everywhere. Just getting back to Dennis's question, your ratings, which would be available in a year, is just a star rating?
Yes. No, this is not a verbal. I'm sorry. It's not a verbal explanation where you can write paragraphs about things. That's kind of. It's prohibitive of the interest of all parties to just have people go on and rant and rant and rant.
Well, that's
we just,
what I was trying
yeah,
to
no, that's not in the best interest of anybody to have those issues. Because if people do that, it'll hurt the students and the off-campus renters, because they're going to have to read through pages of stuff and they're going to lose interest. And we want this to be something significant. At the same time, I'm sorry.
Well, beyond that, we do not want to read the stuff and decide if something is slanderous or. So that we decided on this method as a pretty, if you check it out, you'll see what we set up, and I think it's pretty, a pretty good way to go to get a consensus of, the house.
Great. Yes.
From what I've seen on the site, it shows an availability date of the property. Is there any hope of possibly being able to modify that, whereby maybe the entire property wouldn't be emptied out and available again, but maybe portions of it or a sublet or something like that you could kind of be a little bit more specific to what you have available?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. One of the things that we have is that because we are a communications business, that's all we are. Okay, we are not in the business here of renting houses per se. We're in the business of having a platform. So we have a full-time IT department. That's what we are. And anything we get from you we worked on it for a solid year before we put it up there. And since we put it up there, we have changed it several times. Today, Jonathan and I just went through the next version of it with our IT department to say, yeah, we'll take those pages now. So if you have anything that we changed one thing for New Paltz already. I think that there was one issue that we came across. So if we need to know. We can't know every issue in every community. Some are very specific to those areas. And if we can address it on our site, we will work to do that.
So just send an email to the website?
Yep, the support email is fine, and any suggestions are always welcome from any party, quite frankly. If the front-end users or the back-end users have requests, as Rona was just saying, we are completely malleable. We're able to make changes as necessary, almost on the fly. I mean, we're very quick about that. Our audience is most important to us.
So you keep mentioning campuses, but you said this is an open service to people who are non-students as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a designation on the site? Like if you're a student, you kind of go here, or if you're not a student, so
nope.
that like someone who's like 35 and end up living in a house full of 21-year-olds, for example.
Very, very good point.
Is there some sort of a way that,
what if 35-year-old?
Because if the landlord is renting out each room individually, like many do in some of the houses here, then that's.
Yeah, we have begun to recognize that as a problem. We just discussed this, what was it, last week or a week before, about asking users if they will give us more information regarding, who they are. And, for example, we've discovered that parents are a group of people who actually want to look. It would be nice to know that you're a parent and not a student, because we can say different things to parents. We can offer them more information or different information if they're interested. So yes, but again, that's a good point, and send us some information that, you'd like to see on there, and we will try. Because we can build it. We're trying to build it to meet your needs. We can't know that. We're guessing, quite frankly.
So the website, perchin.com?
Yes, PERCHN.com. Thank you.
Did you have a question also? We kind of kept
Oh,
speeding.
thank you. No, but it got answered.
Sure.
Did you want to talk about any of those community events that you're planning?
We're not planning anything at this moment, but one of the things we like to do is kind of bring people together. So a lot of this stuff that we have in mind right now is built upon local businesses that have asked to work with us. So we'll partner with a local deli, for example, and say, hey, this person is looking to get some more action or interact with the community more. Perchin can do that by saying we're going to be there too, and we'll set you up with some cool Perchin T-shirts, things like that, and engage to kind of bring a community connection. But if you as a board, for example, have any interest in doing something special, we're happy to collaborate with you in any way we can. So we're building right now, and unfortunately we're here at the back end of the school year. So there's not much we can do in like 3 weeks, quite frankly. But we're looking to make a big impact in the fall, quite frankly, when the students and the off-campus community becomes a little more lively. So if you guys have any additional ideas or hopes of what you'd like to see, please shoot us an email. I'll leave some business cards with you, and let us know what we can do to help you guys out.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for the opportunity.
I think actually there's a table in the lobby that has things like that on it.
I believe so.
Okay.
If it's acceptable for you guys, can we leave anybody with like a Perchin toaster? Is that acceptable?
Probably not.
Okay, no problem. That's okay. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Alrighty. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was defining a video protocol for meetings. I wasn't aware until the last meeting that people were allowed to videotape meetings, and having the camera, I didn't realize it was the presenter's camera until she started packing it up, and I was wondering why she was touching it.
Me too.
I was wondering that the whole
Well,
meeting.
she was intimidating.
Me too.
you
I
guys.
said
Oh,
something
yes.
about it.
But but it was facing right at the people who normally aren't on the camera. So I would like to move that for our meetings, that we maintain a policy, and I believe from what I've read, it's at the discretion of the chair, but I would prefer to have consensus on it, that the camera must be pointed, since the law says they're allowed to record it, but we are also allowed to specify from where. I would like it to come from the same direction of the camera that we already know is going on, and 15 feet away from the table. I'd like to move that, our board agrees that should, if you go please. I'm sorry, I didn't leave it for discussion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just gonna say, if we can just, if I could suggest someone adding to that, just
Please.
specifying that it not include,
Oh,
I mean,
the
this is kind of
public.
angled so that it doesn't, so if anybody who doesn't want to, who's in the audience who doesn't necessarily want to be in.
Well, that's why I said it has to be at least
Right,
from
but I
that
mean,
same
yeah.
direction.
But if it's standing back in the same direction, it might end up still catching. So it just adding some sort of thing that has to be an angle where it's only filming like the board members.
Right.
So even if it's coming from that direction, if it's still 15 feet away from the table, just to make sure that it's angled so that it doesn't include.
I think that's totally appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in camera angles by any means.
Right.
But just, to make sure.
Or say then
that's-
10 feet, because if it's 10 feet away, it's in front of the people, most of the people from that direction, and it won't get them except walking out to go to the ladies or something.
Yeah.
It definitely was a matter of, I'm ready for my close-up,
Yeah.
There just needs to, I would also like to, if we can specify that it's just one wide shot of everyone at the table. You don't move the camera around depending on
That's my
who's
point exactly.
speaking. It was too distracting.
It
Well,
needs to
should
be,
it just be like that for the trustees?
There you go.
We have the
Yeah.
same thing for the planning board, I'm on the planning board.
a stationary
That's what it
camera,
is,
10
stationary
feet from
camera,
the
we set it
table,
up.
that is not touched during any of the presentations.
And everyone's on it too, because also the person who did it last time was not in the shot. And that was, like, that was being manipulated.
And I think part of the problem was she was an invited guest, so she was already at the table.
Right.
So we just, there'll be good protocol in place
Nice.
once everybody votes on this one.
Well, you made the
So-
motion, so I second the motion.
So what was the motion?
Let's clarify, I was gonna say, let's clarify that, due to the fact that videotaping from the public is allowed for this landlord-tenant council, relations council, all cameras will be 10 feet away from the table, coming from the same direction as the public camera, and not adjusted during the presentations.
Oh, you know what, I'm realizing we might not be able to enforce that because everybody's got cameras on their phones, and people are gonna whip out their phones and take
That,
pictures.
I don't think we have any control over that, but
But
that was
any
some
kind
whole,
of-
yeah, any tripoded camera that's, or deliberate videotaping. I think we could police it at our discretion. If somebody's taking a video from the back, I don't think there's much we could do about that, but if somebody's setting up camera equipment, we can avoid it from being in an unexplained, an undefined space and allowed to be messed with during the presentation can be avoided.
The person who's going to be taking the video is going to be in the audience.
That wasn't the case
That
last
was-
time.
I understand that wasn't the case, but that was an invited guest. I would
Right.
sit there and say that any
Oh.
recording is done from the audience back
So if anybody,
and not at the table.
so if
I-
anybody wishes to.
I'm not going to have an issue if somebody has it over in the corner
Yeah.
or over here, but just have it out in the audience.
I
Right,
agree. I
I
like
think
that.
that's simple. It shouldn't be right at the table. I agree with that.
okay. I can
It's
take that.
simple, it's easy.
I just want it to not be in a place that intimidates people while it's being adjusted during the presentation. And if it's out in the audience, then the person who's presenting, who's generally not in the audience with it, can't touch it and redirect it. So,
Somebody wants, if somebody thinks that it's going to rattle anybody on this board, they're going to show up here and they're going to have somebody over the corner moving the camera. We're on camera now.
Well, sure.
In the audience.
right.
That's-
So,
that-
like, I will amend the motion to say that any public recordings of the meeting, other than the one that's done by the village on a regular basis, need to be done from behind,
From the audience. area.
from the audience area.
Correct. I'll second that.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
That was
thank you.
Or,
The motion is moved, is carried.
Unfortunate timing.
All righty,
6 yeas and a hiccup.
okay.
Tonight, can we have the video stricken from the record?
Okay, so the purview and goals of the council, I had,
What about number 3?
They're not.
they didn't come.
Yeah, it was somebody that we invited to come, they wanted to talk about their issue
Okay.
that they.
I'm sorry, I thought you heard me before, yeah, that,
Yeah.
I skipped over because he didn't arrive.
I saw the emails.
Okay,
But just talking about that email thread, we just have to be careful. We're not violating open meetings laws.
so,
are you
I
talking
think-
about the spread itself?
Correct.
yeah.
It's one thing about adding them to the agenda, but when everyone's starting to talk about what the right thing to do, we should always be doing it in an open forum.
Right, I think I stopped the meeting once somebody mentioned that I think it was Alex actually, who may have said, somebody brought up that, so I asked everybody to hold any further discussion until now. Then we had some back and forth with Mr. Kaufman, but no more after that. All righty, purview and goals,
Well, then that comes off of that discussion, in part.
Pardon me?
The purview and goals, part of the thing is like, what is our role? and
oh,
what is
every
mediation?
discussion,
Yeah.
everything, the topics
True,
that's come
good
up, we
point.
have to have better definition of how to handle it. I actually asked Alex to print out the mission statement, and it turns out we don't really have a mission statement, but we have a description of what our responsibilities are and the powers and duties that we have. Has everybody gotten a copy of this?
Is that the,
It's very
E-code?
thinly.
Yeah, it seems very thinly.
There's 8 of you.
That's what that is.
Sorry, I'm at seats. I'm just one seat.
I think everything about the membership is, I think it fits in I don't have any issues with that. And the offices and meetings sounds good, and we're gonna talk about more and in depth about how we're gonna have mid-meeting communications in a way that doesn't violate the open meeting law issues. But the powers and duties, I'm very interested in defining some of these, or narrowing or expanding them to make sure that we can actually be effective in helping people. And I think that we need to actually have a way that if somebody wants to apply, whether it's a landlord or a tenant or a community member, and I think that we should make sure we include community members who might be having trouble with landlord-tenant situations into that, since we have a mutual person who's a community member on the committee as well. But I think there should be a defined application process so that we know what, like that, when Julia came for that public comment, I wish I could have handed her a form and said, fill this out. These are the kinds of information you should bring with you to the next meeting. You'll be first on the agenda. You know, and also to invite the police, which was quite awesome idea. I think we need to really establish some processes for success. And that, I think, starts with defining exactly who can we help and what kind of problems can we handle under our purview. I'm going to leave that open to some suggestions, please.
So something that I emailed out to everybody, and I'm pretty sure to the newest members, was an email with like 37 attachments. So I apologize because it was like all the minutes from the previous council. It was like everything I possibly had. But one of those things was a document titled like protocol or whatever. It was something we had started working on the second version of this council. And I don't have it memorized, and I left my keys at my job, so I couldn't get my laptop out of my room before I came to this meeting. But anyway, but it's all, you should all have it in your email.
I saw it, I didn't have time to print it all out.
Just roughly, it was things like, okay, so a person comes with a complaint. Is this something that should be deferred to the building department? Is, step one, did they make their landlord aware of the problem? Or did they make their tenant aware of the problem? Step two. And it just kind of had like a very kind of step-by-step protocol that we could go by when people came to us for help. And obviously that was never finished. It's something that can certainly be amended, but it's at least a starting point if you want to, people can get a chance to take a look at that. And the only other thing I wanted to say in regards to this stuff was, and I think I mentioned this before in a previous meeting, but with mediation specifically. So that was one of the things that we struggled the most with, because we're like, okay, so how do you do this mediation thing? And what we discovered was that there is an organization out of Poughkeepsie that does free mediation services, and the New Paltz Town Court actually uses them so people see the mediator before they see the judge when there's like a dispute. And so these people are trained, and they really know what we were doing. So what we had decided as a council before was like, well, we know that this is a resource. If we can get both parties to agree to mediation, then we can refer them to this professional mediation group. There was one member of the council who actually tried to become a mediator, which is actually kind of costly. Like you have to pay all this money and take all these classes and workshops, and he was struggling on getting it to work out logistically. So he never ended up doing it, but he was be like, well, wouldn't it be great if somebody on our council was an official mediator? But that didn't work out. But so that is an option, Perhaps our role could be potentially just getting the two parties to agree to mediation and then referring them to the mediation group. Or if we decide as a council to go ahead and take that on, that's a whole other.
I've worked with those mediators. They're actually pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And if I imagine that if they're doing that service for free, that it would save the council an inordinate amount of time. And I want to hop back to your first comment and then back to this one. The idea that you started a flow chart already, that flow chart can be used as an awesome idea, because you can, did you do this yet? Did you do this yet? And it becomes an education tool, because then the tenant or the landlord can say, wow, I didn't realize I had these additional options. Let me check into those. If then all of those things have been dropped through down to level, then it's turn the paperwork in, and these are the sort of things that you should present with it to help you faster. I like that idea very much. And then we all have had sort of bits and pieces of discussions about how we would do mediation, would we do it in an executive session? The laws, which I think I wrote earlier, sorry, the rules governing executive session don't really allow us to take people out to do mediations. They're not really written to do that sort of thing, and this would be an ideal solution for that. It really is a very good resource. If they're willing to come here during our meetings, and on a meeting we know there's going to be a party that they can go to, and we can send them to the other room. Please recognize that.
I love the idea, but I don't think we should be involved in that. Once they agree to a mediation, we should basically be removing ourselves from that part of the equation. We've gotten them to the stage. Now it's up to them. I don't think we should really be involved in it after that.
I think that's what I was trying to say.
I don't think we can be either. The first meeting, I think I said, we're not a judicial body.
Right.
So we have no powers to tell this person to do that and that person. I think what we are more is an informative body, that someone comes here, I need help. We give them moral support to begin with. Somebody's listening to them. And then we direct them to where they need to go to get the actual help that's going to stick. Because we can't make anything, we really don't make anything stick. But I think if we can just inform people what their next option is, your flow chart's a great idea, but I think that's what our job is. It's not to solve problems for people.
My idea about bringing them here and putting them in another room was so that they're done with us, but they don't have to travel.
During our meeting.
No.
I'm sorry,
They're just at a different room so that they're done with us. They've gone to mediation, which is also not binding, but the mediators they're trained in good conversation. They're trained in making, leveling the playing field so that all the parties hopefully will feel that they can come to some sort of a consensus, and if not, then it's kind of like that they have to sort of look to legal matters. But I think I'm stuttering, sorry. But I think it's an awesome idea, and I think that it would relieve there are a lot of things that are also in this powers and duty thing that I was unaware of, that unburdening the council from having to do the mediations ourselves and referring that to a professional organization trained for it would not only legitimize us better, but open up our time for doing these other things that are on here that sound pretty interesting.
I'd imagine professional mediators are going to have better results than we would.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And I think we can provide the people who come with better outcomes. Please.
I'm sorry,
That's all right.
I don't want to monopolize this, but there's 5 powers and duties listed.
Right.
And then there's also an annual report that's supposed to be generated.
Right.
I think one of us should own one of these.
Each one of us should own one of the powers, or
own one of these powers and come to the meeting every month with let's say I just conduct research into community housing issues. I mean, I've spent a lot of time over the last month looking at other college towns and how the colleges are interacting with the towns and villages and seeing what they're doing. And I think it would be great if, instead of expanding our responsibilities right now, looking at what's here,
yeah,
and then coming to a meeting. You know what, at this next meeting, this is what I found out about community housing. Maybe we can implement this. So then, when we have to put an annual report together, we have a list of what progress we've made.
with each department.
With each department.
That's an excellent idea.
So you're
I
saying
thought that
to-
the report was something I was going to have to do, and wow, that's a really, really good idea. Thank you. So I would move that we're going to spend time I'd like to make a motion that we're going to devise a form in a flowchart style that will be both educational and informative to the point that it becomes an application for help. If somebody can word that better, I would appreciate it. I think we all know what I mean. And then have that form hopefully available within the next couple of months so that we'll be able to hand it out to people who come to us for help. And we can say, this is the phone number you call, that person will have those forms. They can also have, if one of the questions falls under the purview of these 5 councils, maybe they'll have the second, whoever's gonna be the person most specifically working on that particular idea as a secondary resource, but starting with the form. I move that we start
So
defining that form, doing some
that would be
educational.
B, right? Would
Pardon
you
me?
agree that would be B?
Formulate programs to improve landlord-tenant relationships. I
Yes.
don't know if that would be programs so much. Would that be,
I don't think that's a
Well, it would
program,
be
I
under
think that's gonna
D,
be an
councils-
umbrella paper.
actually, yeah,
I don't
Because
think
we're
we have to
talking
get
about
hung up on the
processes.
word.
Right.
But we already have a flow chart that's already going. Let's just say we call that B,
Right.
okay?
I think flow chart's even a fancy name for it as much as like a Microsoft.
I wanted to end up as an
But we can make it
application,
into a flow chart.
but an
Flowchart
application
would be-
that
Just
gives the
about-
That's
person
fine.
an opportunity to check through
I would like
things.
to call that B and
Okay.
have somebody run with that, and then at the next meeting, here's a suggestion.
Well, Amanda, are these some of the things that you included in some of those attachments in the beginning?
Yeah, it
Right.
was in there, with the one that had just like a 300 million attachments.
so if, yeah.
So, I
and it
mean,
was- it
this
was
is
titled
something that you already
protocol.
have then, and this would
Yeah,
have
yeah,
been something.
which
that
all
you
of you
would-
should have in your emails.
But
Yeah.
but having that block of 28 things where it's, you know, some of them are minutes and some of them are helpful tools, it's hard to
I know.
navigate. So I think
Yeah.
doing like I know hypertext, to say hypertext is old fashioned, but to do some sort of page where, oh, this is the problem I have, oh look, a link, click, boom, there it is. That's what I need to do next. You know, like it brings up the next document.
Like a web.
Like a website, I mean,
Well, that is out of my ability.
That's way out of, that's
That's
expensive.
out of all of our.
But I can certainly like resend just the protocol to everybody, so that's the only thing in
Now I
your
can,
email.
yeah, it's, I wanna print everything you sent because it has minutes from all the old meetings. I thought
Yeah.
I just didn't have time to print it and read it.
No, totally.
But I'm going
Do
to
you
print
want
it
me
all
to
out.
resend the protocol as a separate thing, or do you guys just want to like?
So why don't you just include the things like these that are more specific? The other form that you sent was the return security complaint form.
Yep, all of that
but-
was sent in the same.
It was all in
yeah,
there,
it was all in
so
the
just
same.
separate that out from the minutes, put that into one
Okay.
blast,
Well-
and then you can go to there and find what you need.
but knowing what you need and when you need it, that's the trick. So having a whole bunch of forms is going to be completely overwhelming to somebody who's in a stressful situation. So we need a guideline to those forms, and that's what you're talking about with the flow chart. Is if I'm in this situation, what forms do I need to fill out? If I'm in this situation,
Right.
what forms do I need to fill out?
It would
So
almost be like
that's
frequently asked questions.
Yeah,
I-
yeah.
I didn't get my security back, what do I do now?
there you go. That's
This
exactly
one.
it.
Right, it's like check yes if you blah, 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 and then you're
Yeah.
gonna go somewhere else.
So it's
Well,
definitely
maybe,
an FAQ.
okay, so what about this? What if I send all of this minus the minutes, because that would just
Yeah.
be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And maybe Alex could make a packet for the next meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Then, but I can also email you guys separate from the minutes, all the other documents, because these are things that like, as a council, you'll need to decide, do we want to use this document, do we want to use this resource? It's stuff that's like left over from, some of it, I'm pretty sure all of it's still relevant, but some of it might need to be updated. I know some of it needs to be updated.
Can I ask you to please send that, just a packet of forms that you were working on to everybody? Because just like, I think there are really amazing minds here with a lot of different ideas and perspectives. And if everybody takes a look at what you've already done, I'm sure at the next meeting, we could start to gel some of those ideas into
Yeah,
something
yeah.
functional.
Totally. Yeah, if everybody just gets a chance to look at them, which is the reason I sent them all out, but it was, it's a lot of stuff.
Can you title your links with the title that
Well,
will
what I can do is in the
define
emails,
what it
I can
is?
like just enumerate, in the order of the attachments, like what each thing is.
Okay.
So that way you'll like understand what thing is
Right.
that you're opening. So I can just like, I'll just do it in a much more like user-friendly
Okay.
I just
manner.
printed all, I can't deal with electronic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever you need to do.
Well, I mean,
But yes.
and yeah, when it's printed out, then it comes down to a notebook form where you've got little tabs for what each
Right.
thing is. So it's the same basically.
Right, or loose leaf or something.
And I've obviously got to get a binder for next week.
I know, this one's labeled and everything, right?
This is-
I noticed that, I'm like,
But that's what, there's 5 powers and duties.
Yep.
If we go through all 5 right now, and we ask that everybody gets all 5, we're not gonna get through anything.
No.
So I think one person should work with Amanda to go through this,
The forms, you mean?
the forms.
I
And
really,
whatever-
honestly, really, because one of the things that after watching the last meeting that I want to do is slow down a little bit. I think that saying that, okay, with forms, that is the most important thing that we need, is how we're gonna start. And I think that taking 1 month for everybody to review it, to decide actually who's going to have the most awesome skills with it, and let everybody give their thought about it, and it might just naturally pop out who the right person is. I think everybody should review it. I would like it that way.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't review it. What I'm
Okay.
saying is have one person work with Amanda, look at the forms, see what needs to be updated. And then when they've whittled it down, say a week before our meeting, then it gets sent out to all of us. Oh, we have that first week.
How many forms are there?
It's like 6.
Well, there's the booklet, which is basically like a booklet that was up to date prior to this law that ended up never happening that Jason was trying to put forward.
Is that the education booklet?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
It's
so
on
I
our Bill
was,
of
yeah,
Rights.
and so yeah, it's kind of like a supplement to the Attorney General Tenants' Rights Guide.
Okay.
It talks about just like useful information like parking meter information and like snow removal. Like,
Right.
do you leave on a street that has alternate street parking? You should know that before it's December. You know, things like that. So some of it's rights and some of it's just helpful information for being a person living in the village of New Paltz. So that we had it updated then, but that was like years ago. So some of it might have changed. We just need to fact check that. You know, maybe send it to the building department, make sure nothing has changed there, because the building department has completely restructured since then. So they might need to look over
I would
that.
definitely think that that falls exactly under what Ed's saying. 'Cause I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
some
So
people
that's
need
like
to go over
that's
that.
the more extensive thing that
Right.
needs a bit more work and a little bit more time.
Right.
The other things, one of them was just the rights and responsibilities of landlords and tenants, which had just a list of resources on the back, which is something we were giving out actively at the
I put
previous
that in the
council.
same
So that's like
group
a
with the
one
other thing.
pager, and then the back page is just a list of resources. So there's that. That's easier, and like some of it's stuff that's just literally, it's like I printed off from like the Attorney General's website. Then there's a sample complaint letter, which I think was I basically stole from Nyberg, that we used in our small claims court action center, where we just gave procedural stuff, but it's just very generic. It's just a guideline of how to write a letter to someone, like let's say a landlord who hasn't returned a security deposit, to be like, well, this is what I want. If we can resolve this way, then, you know, otherwise I'm prepared to do blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of what that is. So yeah, the rest of them are just like, you know, simple, maybe front one pages or front and back pages. So those are all more simple. So the only thing that's a little bit more extensive is the
I would definitely want to put the, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no.
Okay. I would definitely want to put the educational material, which I think it's obviously read them already, into that group B for somebody to work with you for updating it. The one thing I wanted to have the wide imagination and scope on was the application form. Because we have an application form that if somebody calls with a complaint, we have something that we can give them immediately that may cover just about everything. I would like to make that, if we can, if it's feasible, that's why I want lots of minds on this one particular thing. I would like to make it one sort of a flow chart that has these scenarios. This is the one that best fits what's going on. These are the kinds of things I could have done. Did I do them? I have. It's not been resolved. I'm going to send this to the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council. And that particular document is the one I would like to see a generalized, everybody kind of let their imagination run on it. But the others, the educational things, I think are separate, and I think Ed's right.
Yeah.
They should go into the program thing.
So it sounds like you're talking basically making the one thing I kind of have, making it two things. Like one just kind of for ourselves, so we know as a council, especially as members come and go, how we go about things. Yeah. But then one that's adapted as what you're saying, as somebody, just like the police have like a form that is just out and available in Village Hall. So if somebody has an issue about the police, or even a compliment about the police, or a question, they can submit that to the village, and it's so we can have those about town. So people can be like, oh, I do have a question or a comment or whatever about tenant landlord. I can just fill this out and send it to the council. Which means we would have to probably arrange some sort of a Dropbox situation with Village Hall so that we would have access to those.
Building department probably, I would think, gets the heaviest load of. Do they get the heaviest load of calls and complaints about? Does anybody know? I think that. Yeah, I think that the building department is the one that gets the heaviest load of questions. That and the village clerk probably gets them as well. And if they had access to those forms, that they could just give, and then, or even, there's any reason why we couldn't even just have it on the village website to be downloaded.
This is what I'm saying, I think
Yeah.
that I think a lot of people, especially current students, are going to be completely comfortable with navigating a website that has access to these things. And I don't think it's going to be quite as difficult as it may seem to be. You know, basically just a Google Doc that links to other Google Docs would be all it needs to do.
Who wants to work on it? I mean, we could sit around and talk. It's a great idea. I think everybody agrees. Let's assign it and let's keep moving.
I'm interested in working on it. My problem is the time frame. I'm doing my PhD work. It's end of semester for me for that, and it's fourth quarter because I'm a teacher as well. So right now, I'm not sure I could commit a whole lot of time to that. Next month, sure, but
Anybody else?
yeah.
I'd be happy to work on
I'd be
that.
happy to help you.
Yeah, because I'm not really, that or the community housing issues, those I'm familiar with. But some of the other things,
Why don't we work on
Yep.
this
Right,
right now
yeah.
for the next meeting?
Yeah, because
We're not
this is
gonna
the
get
important thing to
through
get
all
us to
5 of
get
these
going.
by the next meeting.
Now,
Okay.
this is two things, though. This is our procedures, how we deal with someone who comes to us, and this is what somebody else who has an
Correct,
issue
but there's gonna be a lot of
does. So
overlap.
it's, yes, absolutely.
There'll be a lot of
Yep.
overlap.
well, our procedures are, part of that is the form.
Right, right. I'm just saying, just to be clear, that
Right.
it's two-pronged.
Right.
Yeah.
So we would be using the same, we would have to have the same type of, what is our response to the form going to be
Yeah.
when we get it? How do we deal with each of these types of things? So I have time to work on that if you'd like. I know we work well together, so that's cool. Donna would like to do it too. It would be great if a tenant wants to be part of that.
I would like to, it's just I can't, I mean, I would need to be physically with at least one of you because I can't use the computer, I can't type.
Right.
Well, how do you two prefer to, because I mean, I can like meet up with her with my computer and then we can do this through email, or do you want to try to meet?
Well,
we can discuss our little subcommittee
Yeah.
through email, and then I'll be in touch with you and we'll get it organized.
One of the
Okay, awesome.
things that
Skype
would-
might even be something to utilize for me.
Yeah,
Since
we'll
I'm-
definitely
yeah.
work it out. Cool, great.
One of the other things, and we're gonna get to it later, is how we can have discussions through, in between meetings. And I really like to get them off, as much of it off email, just because the email's so cumbersome, but it's crazy. I can't even do it on my computer.
And yeah, I can, I
Just
can't
can't be a
respond to
majority.
anything.
What's that?
It can't be a majority.
Okay, so if there's
Which is
only,
easier if
If
it's
there's
not on
seven,
the computer.
Right.
If there's 7 of us on the board and 3 of you are discussing, I believe they're fine, correct? As long as they're in the minority, open meetings laws, whatever.
They are okay to work on an issue as long as they don't have a quorum yet.
Which
What is our quorum?
you can't, it's easier to get a quorum when you're online, when you're doing an email
But we don't
conversation.
want one, so
And
if
we
it's
don't
1,
want
2,
one, so,
3,
yeah.
we're fine. Again, are we subject to the open meetings laws because we're a council?
I think we're still not entirely sure, we're just kind of playing it
I
cautiously.
think it's good practice to be as open as possible.
Oh, I agree.
So-
And I'm just a huge transparency nerd, so.
All right, so basically,
That needs to be a
we're
button.
talking about getting our processes in place as a council and what tenants and landlords can do. And it sounded like for E, there's a company named Poughkeepsie who you've had interactions with, who is a free mediation service. I would love to hear from them.
Yeah.
Maybe they can come to our next meeting.
I mean, that's how we invited them to, and they came to a meeting and discussed what they did. That's
Right.
how we kind of
do you
got
know
that.
their name? I'll send them the email. Or
I
you can email it to me.
have a pamphlet with a bunch of stuff. I don't off the top of my head, but I can certainly either find that pamphlet, I know where it is, or just.
We can look it up.
Because we should all have a book that we're building. We're building a book. So there'll be 8 books, and when somebody goes, here's the book, so you pick right up. When something's got to be changed, we just take it out. So everybody's on the same page. We don't have to wait till the next meeting if somebody comes up to us on our own.
Don't buy any binders, I have a bazillion of them, I'll bring them next meeting.
You're taking me right back to my days as a legal secretary,
You know what, I
updating
never
all the
could
binders and the.
Find that.
Well, I don't know how
Ray
else
asked
to
you
do
a
it.
couple
but-
times when
Yeah,
you said
yeah.
I'll send it again,
All
I've
right,
never
did
been able
anybody
to
bring
locate
that by any
that.
chance?
What's that?
The tenants and landlords' rights and responsibilities.
I didn't see it in that.
Because I'm pretty sure we put the mediation service as a resource on the back of that sheet, but it's okay, I can find it later.
Yeah.
Not a big deal.
No, we do have a file in here called protocol.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's
That's
the
like
one.
the quasi flow chart, like not in the format of a flow chart, but it certainly be.
It's an outline.
It's an outline, exactly, it's an outline. So a flow chart might be a very fancy
It's
title.
not that, right?
No, that's
No.
the Attorney General's tenants.
It's called Duchess Mediation.
Oh,
Okay,
there
thank
you
you.
go.
Is the name of the company?
Sorry.
Okay.
Because that would be great to have.
Okay, so, and I'm actually going, do I need to make a motion about inviting these people?
No.
Okay, good. Alrighty, thank you. So I'm gonna send in, would you like to, write the invitation for the police? Because I don't think we should wait till the last minute to make these invitations. It's not really fair if we're sending them out the week before.
I will put something together and I will email it to you. I think it should come from you as
Yes,
the chair.
but I liked the way you worded it, so I'm asking you to write it for me. And I'll send out the one to Duchess Mediation. Thank you.
They might even have like a form or something that they could contribute for the information that they would need if people were going to come to them for
Yes.
mediation. So they could bring that with them, and then that, we can give that out, then they're all ready to have the information they need when they get
That's an
there.
awesome idea.
Yeah.
I'll actually mention that email. Oh, thank you.
Especially the issue that we were discussing via email. We may want to invite them just to come and listen.
Pardon? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
The tenants in the email conversation that they, or the parties to that email conversation, maybe they should come and
The
listen
ones
to.
from the earlier item on the agenda? Okay, yeah.
We're letting them know that we're going to have a mediator come in and present to us as a board. They may want to come and listen to hear what
That's
has
a
to
good
be
idea.
said.
But I'll get confirmation from the mediation service that they're coming before I send invitations to come hear them. Alrighty. So,
So we basically taken care of B and E to start. A, C, and D.
Under what?
I'm looking at the
5?
powers and duties.
Oh, okay.
I think you three are clearly doing something. I think the rest of us should try and do a little research on the remaining, not necessarily to come up at the next meeting, but for maybe 2 meetings, just to get this ball rolling. Conducting research into community housing issues. We know what the housing issues are pretty much in New Paltz.
Well, we think we do. Yeah, I think so largely, but I mean,
But we should have a sheet saying this is what has been identified.
yes.
I would like to see, actually, I did some research in Burlington last week, and I brought that with me for tonight because we were gonna talk about, advocating for the community as well as the landlords, and I put that on the agenda for a reason. I would like to I would like to assign a mini committee, if that's how we'll define that, to do research into the community housing issues, looking to see if there are people in our community right now having difficulty finding available, what level of homelessness is going on here, and how are the lower income people being affected by the current
Well, you're trying to find the demographics.
Yeah, I'd like to get the demographics, exactly, that's it. The demographics
So
of our community. I want an accurate representation
I'll
of
start
it.
working on that. Would any of the tenants like to work on that?
Yes, I just did the same issue as usual for me, but I need to do it with someone physically or Skype with them or something.
All right,
so I
Anna,
can't
right?
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like that to include renters and homeowners if possible, so that we know what the different percentages are, and
Then we might have some stuff.
Oh,
stuff.
good thought,
Just
yes.
about like how many people come to their office.
Who?
the affordable
Pardon?
housing.
Oh, yeah, the affordable housing board.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a good, we've been presented with some legislation that we'd like to push through, and I ran into some very interesting information while researching consequences of legislating those kinds of laws. And I would like to know what our current demographics are so that we could at least postulate on what the possibilities of changing those laws might create.
Mhm.
And if we don't know where we are on a baseline, then we can't make good recommendations. And
I
I-
think just reaching out to Guy Kim, I
Okay.
imagine he has
Yeah.
a lot of great data for you.
Yeah.
And Ed, is anybody else gonna work on that with you, do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned that you wanted to know what some of the building, or what some of the issues are that are coming up, or that we, the general idea of what issues we tend to encounter, and one of the documents that you included was the building department tenant issues. So we have a nice long list already as a starting point, which is good. So, squirrel infestation. And,
There's a lot of issues, and just like the village has their code book,
yes.
we're gonna have our own. All right, this is how the flow chart works.
Right.
Open a page, this is the issue, go to tab B,
Boom, do it.
here you go, A, B, C, D.
Yeah. Okay.
What about,
Can you, was that in the list?
Yeah, that's in the
Okay,
big, that's
okay,
the
good.
one
Because
that's
I'm printing that
called.
all out. I saw that, I was so grateful to send all
Tenant
the old
issues.
minutes. Because that would really give me a
What
good
is the
idea of
overview
what we
of
tried,
There
what we
might
had.
be one or
Is
two,
this in one
but
document?
Yeah.
because none of
This
them
is
ended up
one.
on file with the village. So
This
there
is
was none.
back in
So I was like,
February.
well, I guess
She
I'm
said
pulling,
no.
Google searching them out of my old emails. I think I got most of them, but there might be one or two.
I think it would be
But
really nice to
most
see
there.
where people have gone before with it,
And
where
all
we
roads are
hit
in
dead
there.
ends,
Yep.
where we can avoid going down the same alleys.
I think
The
you got it.
handbook too,
I saw.
Yeah, right there.
Where do you see it?
No, my name.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to
Recognize
ask,
my
with
name,
the
good for me.
community impact study,
Yeah.
can somebody just elaborate a little bit more
Oh,
on what
yeah,
they
that's great. I wanna
wanted to
find
see with
that.
that one?
Oh, that was me. I added that because one of the things, are we done
I think
talking
we're
about
18th.
the first thing on here, which is this page? Do we want to finish that?
Hold that thought, 28. Although you might have gotten it on the 18th.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I think that counseling the Board of Trustees, number D, is something we should put off until we have made better processes for handling things that are brought to us and have a,
right, and C,
Right, no,
C
we
is
have
almost
nothing
similar to
in
A.
right.
Yeah, I was thinking
I
there's a
was gonna
lot
say
of
C and
overlap
A are
there.
very similar.
Is there anybody else who wants to work on that with Anna and I?
I can come in and help with it
Ken
next
wants to
month,
do
just
something
not
with
this
it.
month.
Totally.
Amanda, which letter grade?
Can you work on
We
that?
A? What are we,
Yeah.
B? Do we get a B?
Yes,
We
you're
don't-
B.
Okay,
We're
thank
off to
you
a
very
fine
much.
start.
So Ken and Rob.
Get our letters
All right,
assigned
so the
over.
four of us. Actually, it should only be three of us.
I've added
Rob, I'm
Kenny,
gonna give you
who's
a
for?
pass right now.
You can have 4 people as long as only 3 meet at a time. If that way you have an extra person built in, should there be an absence, you still have 3 minds putting their heads together to work on it. You just have to be mindful of all 4 people are available at the same time, someone has to step back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a pass, because you got a busy month and a
Yeah,
half.
practicality issues, I don't know how helpful I would be right at the moment.
That's fine.
so.
And these things can also be, we've got the ball rolling and then we brought it back to everybody and then everybody puts their minds together. So we don't have to be too mindful of excluding anybody.
Yeah, this is not finished by next month. We should all have a report,
Exactly.
Right.
of progress.
Something
Here's
to
what
get
we
the
found out
conversation
so far.
going.
Tackling one issue every month. All right.
I think that if we're going down the agenda, the discussion to define the scope and purview is gonna kind of fall into everything we're just talking about right now. I don't think we need to- if anybody thinks we need to define that further.
that
And
item
mediation-
5 you're talking
Pardon me? Item 5.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Define mediation, I think mediation is a phone call to Dutchess mediation. I thought
Yeah,
that was,
farming
that
that
was
out.
really, I was something I was sweating, how we were gonna do that. That's, I think that hopefully referring it to them will be a very good solution. And then landlord-tenant relationship council goals, short-term and long-term. Well,
Short-term seems to be to establish protocols and procedures.
right. And then long-term is to affect positive change in the community among all
rental properties and the people associated with them.
So well worded.
I like that.
Perfect. Perfect. Repeat it.
Don't forget the long-term goal.
Did you
of
get
11.5
that?
months.
Cool.
I mean, like, education was definitely a theme that we all see.
But that would be part of
And that's
it.
actually like a huge part of our overall, you know.
Yeah, no, that's part of the improved improved,
The
Everything.
long-term goal should be the report next April.
Every year.
We never submitted a
Fortunately, we've
report.
got-
I don't think the previous council even like read that far down. And like even realized we were supposed to. We kind of got like the 5 like the
So
duties
far
and
we're
powers. I'm
best.
like, okay, good.
All right.
Okay.
All right, now we're at the mediation thing. I mean, the advocate for the community part. I watched the last meeting with the objective viewpoint of not being there, not being under the pressure of the meeting itself. And one of the things that stood out to me more than anything else, even more than the tension, was the fact that votes were being made, discussions were being had about how things would affect tenants, how things would affect landlords, but nobody proposed anything, and I completely empathize with where you were at the time, but nobody proposed anything that was going to ask how any of those changes might affect the community. And I think that before, I actually wrote this, I'm gonna, hope, please be patient with me, it's about a page and a half, but I stutter a lot and I wanted it to come out quite clearly. And at the last village board meeting, I was accused of not paying taxes, and after telling everybody I do, I made a promise at the village board meeting last week. I promised that in my position as chairperson of this board, I will always advocate for the well-being of the community, even before landlord or tenant interests. I hope you will all continue to support me as chair after that declaration. In the interest of keeping that promise, I'm going to be recommending that we require community impact studies before making recommendations on proposed legislation change recommendations to the board. Almost all the village boards require environmental impact studies before granting permits, variances, zoning adjustments, or code legislation. I think there should be a model for the community impact studies. I have a single example of why I'm presenting this before you, but there have been a number of them recently. I have repeatedly heard from Ms. Tesorario refer to a 31-year-old ordinance legislated in Burlington, Vermont by Bernie Sanders that should be used as a model for the Village of New Paltz board should it use a new paradigm for legislation to protect the tenants of New Paltz and limit landlord rights. I traveled to Burlington, Vermont last week. I spoke with the members of the zoning and planning and the community and economic development offices. I spoke to them about the proposed legislation in New Paltz, and they were quite ambitious. I was surprised to find they were ambitious to advise extreme caution in developing a plan to minimize security deposits and negate contracts by ordinances. The Community and Economic Development Office was created in Burlington to correct problems associated with what that 31-year-old legislation in Burlington evolved into. Reduced securities prevented local landlords from maintaining their properties adequately, causing rents to drop and local investors to suffer. This allowed many non-Burlington and non-Vermont resident investors to buy most of the rental properties in Burlington. Those outside investors have increased the per room rents an average of $100 per bedroom over the last 5 years. That average is $50 more than the current New Paltz average rent in a community with a lower per capita standard of living, which is Burlington, not New Paltz. This problematic law had unpredictably severely marginalized the low-income residents of Burlington. It led to the creation of tent communities of homeless people in and around the city and its parks. The city has also been adversely affected by the exodus of family residents as they sell their homes to investors, as taxes rise and transient tenants were not held accountable for disrupting community by their absent landlords. I have seen these disenfranchised communities and stayed at a motel in Winooski, a suburb of Burlington, where the homeless are sometimes housed by social programs. Mothers with children were living amidst other marginalized community members who had chemical dependency issues. Contrary to Ms. Tesarario's claim of that the maximum security a landlord may charge in Burlington is $200, the current ordinance in Burlington allows the landlord to charge a maximum of 1 month's rent for security, and they may collect the last month's rent with the first. It does not permit tenants to use security to pay rent. The same ordinance also does not support the breaking of contract leases in any way. I have attached copies of the ordinance concerning both points to this memo. The modified version of the older Burlington housing ordinance has not been sufficient to reverse the damages caused by the earlier law.
I think that it's very important that we do thorough community impact studies when presented with proposals for changes to local ordinances and requests for recommendations to the village board. I believe studies about changes to current laws that concern a segment of our community must more importantly answer questions regarding how those changes might alter the character of the entire community. And then attached to that, I have the two printed out from me up in Burlington, the two laws that address what the securities are, and that I brought a copy for everybody.
Thank you.
So I use this as an example because it's the conversation that generated my awesome concern for us voting on things that we haven't really done serious due diligence on. Does everybody get one?
Yeah.
It's gonna be in the minutes, right?
I'll make another copy or email it to you.
Well, it should be part of the meeting.
Um,
I need a copy.
okay.
It would be helpful if you also send it to me.
I'll just send it to you.
Yeah.
All right, I have notes on the back of mine, actually I can take the notes off because I can reprint that part. Here you go.
Cool. And anytime you guys just present something at the table, just make sure I get a copy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry about that.
If you could also send me a digital copy,
Sure.
I would like to forward this to the rest of the village board.
I was actually gonna read it at the village board meeting.
Okay.
I'll forward it to you in
can
advance of
both.
that.
You can
Okay, good,
both.
will do. All right.
I appreciate your letter.
Yes.
I think it's an excellent letter. I think doing a community impact study typically costs money. Last I looked, we don't have a budget to do that. But I think what we should do, if we're gonna make recommendations to the village board, that would be part of our recommendation, is that they look at what the impact would be, because they would have to do the study. I don't believe we could.
Yeah, I just wouldn't even do that.
We were given this landlord-tenant proposal, the Tenant Protection Act, and it was discussed about 4 different cities where the claims were made that this had been helpful to tenants.
Right.
And all it took was one trip up to Burlington, one day for me to, and they were very helpful because they're dealing with that. Yes, Kenny?
Oh, I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I
it's
was
okay.
just
I'm
putting-
waiting for you to ask a question, so it's good.
I just, one of the sections in here, I just kind of wanted like maybe a source, like maybe the person that you spoke to, who
Which
really,
section?
just really describing the chain of events after this law and like how the
I
situation played out.
spoke to, his name was Marshall. I'll have to get the rest of it for you, because I have it written on an envelope. I was taking notes on an envelope. But his name was Marshall, and he was with the, this is why I write things down when I'm talking.
That's the Community and
The
Economic
Community and
Development.
Economic Development Office, and he's the one who gave me all of this information.
Okay, just the only thing that concerns me with the impact statement is you cited things like, EPA impact statements, but those are sometimes like a little easier to prove, because when you're talking about, parts per billion of lead in the water, you can test that, you can have quantified data that really, clearly shows, and, doctors know that lead is terrible for people to consume. But with these, with like, economic issues, there's so many factors.
They're speculative.
It's speculative. Like, can you say that this happened in Burlington because of this law, or 20 other affecting things that happen? Whether it's like the housing markets or like there's just so much at play. I don't know if we could ever really say what it kind of speculative. That's a great word.
In all honesty, I understand that we would, if we were going to do a community impact study. I mean, this particular law, I think, has many issues in it that just need to have been better researched before voting was done on it. And I only used one example. Of course, if we're going to do a real study, we would have to check out how those kinds of laws, because I think we were given 5 examples where this was supposedly working wonderfully. I only checked one out. This is only one example.
Well,
But I think it's a start to say that we need to do that kind of due diligence before we make recommendations about any kind of, and that should be, in this case, to be honest with you, my defense of this is more to protect I'm a landlord investor. I wouldn't want any one of my tenants to end up in any of those situations, neither family tenants or student tenants. That, to me, protects the tenants more than it does the landlords, the issue for that.
So I mean, I understand the hesitation of wanting to get into like this full-out impact study that might cost money, but at the very least, we can definitely check with agencies like RUPCO, like Family of New Paltz, like the Affordable Housing Board, because a lot of them do, like, family gather statistics, you know, and as far as just, even just amount of people who come to their door, the amount of food that they, you know, all of these things, so that, you know, we can at the very least get a good picture of what's going on in our community through agencies that directly deal with these communities within our community. So at the very least, we can check with these groups.
Right, reach out,
Right.
see if
Yeah.
these studies have.
Another interesting.
And also, oh, sorry,
No, you go ahead.
just also, because I've also, my laptop is locked in my house right now, so I have a friend who's an attorney who I've been talking to, asking for help with some of this stuff that I don't understand because I'm not a lawyer. So, and this person has sent me some information, and there's more research coming, which I will share with everyone once I can get to it, just about additional, you know, both stuff going on in some of these other places that were cited that have passed these laws. And I think that is important. Just like I said to Celeste, I'm like, well, you're saying there's no evidence to show that there was a negative impact. I need to see evidence that there was no evidence. Like I need to see evidence of before and after this law to show like what happened in that community. You know, and to show me there was no negative impact by showing me certain specific like data, like the amount of rents and did they go up, did they not go up, and that sort of thing, to show us, you know, what happened in these communities, and then kind of compare those communities to here. Because we can't just do it with one.
Of course not.
You know, Burlington's very different from New Paltz, and so is Ithaca. So kind of looking at those stories in more depth. Right. Kind of, I think that's good too for us to look into, which wouldn't cost us any money. And again, I will certainly exploit my lawyer friends for free information and research as much as I can, which will cost us no money. So once I have that information, I'll pass that along too. But I think that's definitely, we can definitely do that. Is, you know, I think, yeah, that was it. No, sorry.
Yeah, I think the important part of what you're saying is that everyone needs to make sure we're taking the time to fully research things before jumping in.
Yes, absolutely.
And I watched that 2-hour and 14-minute meeting, and there was a lot of misinformation. And I appreciate the fact that everybody wants to take everybody at their word. Now, you don't believe everything you find on the internet, but if you want to find what each state's security requirements are, it's very easy to find. And there was a lot of statements made that were just false.
Are you talking about by Celeste? Or?
I'm not saying any names. There was more than one person who offered up some false statements. Now, this may not be accurate either, and I'm full disclosure, but you drove to Burlington, Vermont. I found that out in 3 minutes. You didn't have to drive.
I was visiting family too.
I had finished watching that video and wound up, I had a soccer game that I played with a friend of mine whose daughter is going to Burlington. And when I told him the statement that was made, he said, that's absolutely false. I just signed a rental agreement.
My children both went to school there.
So
One still lives there.
I love the fact that we want to get things done. That's excellent. But you can't just jump right in and sit there and say, well, this is what one person presented.
Well,
we have to do some research as a board before you make, oh, that sounds great. You better make sure you've done your research too.
Well, I think part of that discussion, we said we don't want to just take whatever some other place did because some other place isn't New Paltz. And we then went forward with different ideas, and I know that's where you've got the...
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. Stating what another community did at some point is one thing. Stating what currently is going on in different states and being factually wrong is different.
Oh, sure.
So
and
that's,
no,
I just want to make sure.
No, I totally agree. That I feel a little suckered. That, you know, But I think that not everything that happened in that discussion was based off of, oh, it's happening there, therefore it should be the norm here. I think we intentionally steered away from that quite a bit, although we entertained some changes of ideas. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're also fully knowledgeable that we are not the body
that's the other thing, is about recommendations.
We can make a beautiful wish list of what we'd like, but at the end of the day, it's going to go through the village board and their attorney, more importantly, their attorney's chopping block, which is probably going to be the most significant chopping block that this thing goes through, because he's the one who's like, well, my job is to make sure that the village doesn't get sued. So I think we also kind of are knowing that that's going to happen. So even things that we like may not make it through.
I think this is excellent. And to me, I would want to add it to the powers, because I think what you're saying.
I'm sorry, what are you looking at?
Which part are you?
Well, I'm reading
okay. I don't have it in front of me anymore.
and I guess maybe I'm looking at it from the planning board viewpoint. We can't just make laws and legislation that affect either tenants or landlords, positively or negatively. But overall, if we do that, where is the bigger impact?
Right.
As you bring out, and I think that's just like we're doing with the NBR district. We're looking at the zoning there, because the zoning was done, and the zoning changed, and now when the first applicant comes, we have this uproar that people, it's impacting the community. Now, rentals in New Paltz are a very, very important part of the economy. And if we have to look at, just as you say, the landlords couldn't keep their buildings up because of different things that impacted the economics of it. Look, it's an economic opportunity that we invest in houses, we rent them, and it isn't just students by far. So
I have families as well.
I think your point here really should be incorporated in our overall scheme, as Ed says, in our annual report. So when next April comes or wherever, we focus on what we're doing and the overall economic impact it makes on the community of New Paltz.
And I just want to add, I try to do as much research as I can before I speak. And I thought I heard you say at the last meeting that in New York State, you're not allowed to use security deposit for unpaid rent.
Yes.
Now, this might be outdated. This was the most recent on New York State by the Attorney General, which stipulates that a landlord may use a security deposit as a reimbursement for the reasonable cost of repairs beyond normal wear and tear if the tenant damages the apartment, or a reimbursement for any unpaid rent. So I just want to make sure that we as a committee, when we make statements, let's just, again, this might be outdated. They may have changed it, but that was the latest I could find.
Basically, an addendum to it is that you have to go through a judge to do that. Like, you have to document the process through that.
I found the same thing and I didn't see anything.
In Vermont.
What you also need to do if you're withholding security for any damages, if a tenant challenges that, you still have to go to.
I understand.
So I don't think his statement was false. I just think that document is great and wonderful and a helpful resource, but it is not as detailed as it could be with things like that.
I just want to caution all of us here when we make statements. I would have loved for you to have sat and said, it says one thing in here, but there's additional steps that go to that. Let's just try to be as thorough as we can.
And remember, we have attorneys at our disposal when we're not really sure. We can reach out to the village attorney, we can get clarification from him. There's NICOM attorneys that we can utilize that don't have a retainer or charge us by the hour as well. So, we have resources available to us when we're not really sure, because the internet is a great source of information, not always reliable.
Misinformation too.
Actually,
And misinformation too.
you're talking about two different things. One law states that the landlord should not take security for rent. But the Burlington law says that the tenant may not use his security as rent.
Right.
Interesting.
That's actually two different things.
That's a different way of stating it.
Right.
Many tenants feel that, well, I paid my security, so I won't pay my last month's rent. That's not allowed, but I have the exact same thing here. That rent owed when the tenant moves and lack of proper notice of moving by the tenant, which results in the loss of rent to the landlord, he can keep the security for that.
So, anyway,
Right.
let's not belabor this point, it's just, there's certain things, state law, can the village supersede that? I think all things that we need to find out. But anyway, going back to, I thought your letter was excellent.
Thank you.
I appreciate that you put that in there, it'll be part of the minutes, and
Thank you. All righty, I don't know,
Okay, so we're done with E, right?
that was it.
Oh, so number
the,
one.
the question is, do we want to think about adding, and as, I'm sorry, my name?
What?
What do you mean?
Dennis, we
Dennis, thank you. As Dennis said, do we want to add that community impact studies to the ABCDE of the powers and duties? And then include it in the final annual statement, what kinds of impacts have we had on the community as well as the landlords and tenants?
Well, I feel like that, I mean, doesn't that fall under the, accumulate statistical information? Well, unavailable housing accommodations, but isn't there, conduct research into community housing issues.
I would like to make that more clear that we were including community impacts, because I honestly believe that every single council, every board, every special interest, or I don't mean that in a negative way, it's often used, but every council of the village government should be, its first priority should always be the community, not just the one small thing that
How
it's
do you want
focused on. Pardon me?
How would you like to do that?
I
I mean, we can't change the state law, because that's what this came from.
This is state law?
This whole like thing right here, the only thing that's not verbatim state law is the membership part, which is specifically code. But if you go to like New York State, I can't remember.
This is not New Paltz document?
No, it's,
it's verbatim taken from the state mandate, but then the local stuff like membership details is added in with village code. But that whole bit, this is verbatim from the state. So we can't change that, but we can certainly either, I don't know, how do you?
why can't we change it if it's the village version?
Well, no, you can change code, the village board can. The village board could add something to the code. I'm just saying,
But
do we want to put it somehow just in our own policies? For example, in these documents, like the protocol, et cetera, that we are, or the things that we're handing out to people, we can put it on there.
So the community impact statements we would understand as a group would be a subset of C, which would be accumulate statistical information on available housing accommodations.
I would prefer to see it added to D. Council of the Board of Trustees on Landlord-Tenant issues problems and disputes and recommend programs for the solution of the same, and somehow word on that, which will include community impact studies of those recommendations.
Why would it be under A then for conduct research into community housing issues?
Because it's not, but actually, the research is there, but it's generally, the only time we're gonna actually really need to do it is when we're making a recommendation for something that's gonna be legislated by the board.
Well, I guess it's under D2, Council of the Board of Trustees on Landlord-Tenant issues, problems, disputes, recommend programs for the solution of the same. I mean, it's kind of embedded in a few of these, but if we would like to, I mean, we could, you know, liaison, see if we can get a recommendation to adjust like the village code in regards to the council, which is, you know,
or just make it F as
Or make
needed.
it F, right.
As
Okay.
needed.
Yeah.
F as needed. But that, community.
Oh, community impact studies as needed.
As needed.
Yes.
But that would have, the village board would have to.
Okay, that we'd have to ask them.
They would have to
right.
vote on this, we can't vote on this.
Or we just take it as a,
right? Would that be new law thing?
Yes,
You would need a public hearing and all of that stuff.
so
Okay.
we just take it as understood that it's a subset of one of
Consensus
these
on what to
existing
recommend
ones.
to the village board, and then you would send that recommendation to the village board, and then they would take whatever action they should.
Right, and it would go to the attorneys. We're trying to get a fencing law changed in the town.
Fencing?
Fencing. No,
Yes.
fencing.
Right there.
Which seems like something simple, but it's such a long and arduous process.
I've come to many of the village board meetings, and I see how long it gets to take, you know,
But again, we can also put it just on our own documentation that we give out to the public and that we use for ourselves. So
I would like
we
it
know
to be
that's
permanently in
covered.
here,
Yeah,
so
okay.
that any other future iteration and other new people, because to me, this was,
So that's the language that's missing.
it's language that's missing in here that I think is very important.
That we should decide if we want to send that language to the village board and have them act on it. That's the only way to do that. We can't do that.
So maybe
Right,
this is
no, we
some-
have, the only thing we can do is ask the village board to consider it, and then,
So do you want to
Make
write
that
something up over
Sure.
the next month?
I will.
And next month, we can just vote on it to send it to the village
Yep.
board?
And at the same time, I can check with Will to see what options we have as far as modifying the powers and duties.
Excellent.
Just to make sure that you're not wasting your time on something that we wouldn't be legally allowed to do.
I mean, we have done this before. The reason that there is a landlord alternate, and the reason why landlords who live in the town but have only property in the village are eligible for this council is because we lobbied the village board to make these changes to village code. So when the public, I think we were the only people that showed up for the public hearing. It was just like, we want this, because we asked you for it. And that was kind of it, from what I remember. But, so, it can be done.
Dennis, you say you were gonna talk to
Yeah, I'll
Mr.
follow up
Frank?
with Will just to see. I'll
Will,
copy you an
okay.
email.
Okay.
So now we're done with E.
On the 6th.
Okay, and some of this I feel like,
Yeah,
I think we already
covered some
discussed
of
a
these
lot of that.
things.
Well, 6A is pretty much done.
Yeah.
yeah.
Page 2.
We've talked about 6B to some extent, but not completely.
Well, I think that's going to, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was gonna say, I think we have a good start, and
Right.
then as we go along, we'll come up with new ideas and new tools and discover
Right.
new resources.
B will be addressed with the spreadsheet or the
And we also,
flow chart.
addressed it with the discussion about how we have to limit those email conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we done before? One of the things, for me, the email it's very ponderous, and it's hard for me to see who was in, who was out, who's been included, who isn't. Are we allowed to use any other social media, like, not social media, but other communication group apps, where, like WhatsApp or something like that, where we can all have separate groups that those conversations are only, if I have a group that's Amanda and Anna and I about the one thing, and Ed and Kenny and whomever was the other person on that, for each of those things, if they have their own group and it has its name, those people are the only ones that can talk within that group, and it keeps it so that it's never becoming over quorum on that conversation, but it's easy to follow it because it's a thread.
I think you can do that with the Google.
Why
Pardon me?
can't you set that up on your emails as just a group, a blast to 3 people? I
'Cause
could set Valerie and Amanda up and click on that, and then I talk to you about what I want to talk to. I mean, emails there.
Put in the
I
title.
don't do anything on Microsoft, but when it comes to Google, I lose it. I'll have to ask someone to show me how, but that's fine.
Yeah, I think the email is the best way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's just,
Yeah.
it's especially given that, it was especially, personally, my email can be foiled, so it's more open. Using apps and GroupMe and that type of thing, it's very convenient, but it's not very open.
Oh, I prefer to stay open.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm not,
Technically not
Okay.
foilable.
it's not foilable by any means, but it's not like best practices.
Right.
What do you mean by
I
foil?
agree.
Like hackable?
Freedom of
No,
information act.
yeah.
Freedom
Oh,
of
gotcha.
And now, so like us personally, like our personal emails, like they can't just like get access to our personal emails. However, an email thread where
Yes.
Dennis or a clerk or any other official person is in that thread, that means anything we've said in that thread is also going to be foiled. So for example, if the mayor is talking to, like Jack, wait, there is no Jack at Jack's Deli, Mohammed, Jack's Deli, or Abraham, Abdul. Oh yeah, sorry.
There's both the two of them.
I'm like advertising, I don't know if that's anyway,
It's
point
just
being,
tacky and
if any elected official is talking to that community member's email is part of that,
Mhm.
and it's public information. So that's also just something to keep in mind with all this email stuff. Also with social media, I had a Facebook status end up in the newspaper, so just, Yeah, so, just keep those things in mind when we're,
Well, you don't
dealing with
have
all
to,
this
you
stuff.
don't have to reply, when you get an email from somebody, you don't have to reply all, you can reply to whoever you want to reply to, and then that's just you and them.
Correct, but if they're a foilable entity, then just, know that.
Use email, phrase.
I think if we, on the Google, but when I wanted to find the things that you had sent me today, you had titled it in a way that kept that conversation separate from the 76 email long one that included everybody else about everything
Yeah,
else.
I mean, I just find,
And that made it much easier for me to figure out where to find the paperwork for tonight.
yeah, it's just
Which
so
is gonna have a
hard to
binder.
follow.
So we just need to be,
It was
yeah,
too much.
can't really, I
Mhm.
agree.
So,
And I actually, I meant to send an email just to Amanda, and I said to everyone, because it's like I can't, I wanted to just be off the computer
and
as fast as
far
possible.
as,
so-
as far as transparency, I mean, what a subcommittee is working on is going to be presented to the board.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we don't need to worry about like every element of that subcommittee's work being like posted publicly somewhere. I mean, that's, but all the work that that subcommittee is going to do is going to be presented to the board. You know what I mean? So, like, that's the part, like, all of what we did is going to be presented here publicly.
I absolutely agree that it should be in the place that is the most transparent. But also, I wanted to, my suggestion was more about being able to manage the threads than, but if we're gonna title them appropriately, this, so that if I see an email that says across the top of it that it's about whatever your topic is, I'm not gonna be expecting, well, I wouldn't get it anyway, because I'm not gonna be named in it. And we try to stay.
But there is such a thing as thread drift, so
Right,
that
so
when the
try not
conversation
to,
starts going
right,
somewhere else,
try not
change
to
that
answer
headline.
anything on something that's in our group about the form. Don't all of a sudden ask you about something they're
Well, that was
talking
what was
about.
happening. Like,
Yeah.
people were picking up, and then all of a sudden, that conversation was like carried over to a entirely different
Yeah.
email thread, and like it was.
Keeping good titles on it is the only way that I'm
The
gonna be able to
the
do.
only emails that we should all be on is basically emails that come from Alex or you about meetings and minutes.
Anything else should have no more than 3 of us on the
There should
on the
not
group.
be any reason for anything more than that. So if you see, reply all, and there's more than 3 names,
Don't.
I would
it's
say-
gonna be public information.
Right.
And
One exception would just be suggestions for the agenda,
Right.
that kind of
Right.
stuff. Or like, oh, did so and so say they were on vacation that week? Just
Well, even so,
procedural stuff.
if it's suggestions for the agenda, okay, so I get the email blast, here, we're gonna have a meeting, is there any suggestions? I should not be hitting reply all for
Correct.
the suggestion for the agenda, I should just be sending that to.
But don't you think it's a good idea that we all know what people are, just so that she doesn't get 15, okay, so there's not 15 people on the council, but I tend to exaggerate the numbers.
Repeated suggestions.
Yeah, because,
Oh, I don't mind that. 'Cause
Okay, all right.
I sort them, Alex sees them, we can condense them. If somebody I might put something up, and I always, when I put something up for the agenda, I put it up for people to make recommendations on expanding on it or condensing it, because sometimes I'm too expansive. And/or improving the verbiage. I'm
That actually
told-
might be a good
I
idea,
would
just
hope-
because it also kind of, people like start to naturally want to discuss so that's actually a really good idea.
Yes,
I
no
would hope
reply
when
all.
somebody
Yeah.
replies or wants to add something to the agenda, that you would have a conversation with them about what it's about. Tell me a little bit more about it so you're both well versed on it. You tend to send the agenda out a couple days beforehand anyway, so
Right.
we'll know what's on it.
Right. Well, we have a schedule, Alex and I have made a schedule, and it's actually in my phone, I should inform everybody. For the Tuesday before, the week before the meeting, I'm going to send out to everybody a note if there's anything that you would like to add to the agenda. So is that the second Tuesday, because we're on the third Thursday? Okay, so the second Tuesday, I'm gonna send out an email to everybody, Alex and Alberta. Is there anything that you all would like to put on the agenda? Here's what I've considered so far. So then on Thursday, those responses can be integrated into the draft of the agenda, and it can go to Alex on Thursday night, because she has to have it by Friday. She has to have it on Friday, the second Friday before our third Thursday, to get it done and out to whomever needs it. So that's a process that we've put on our phones and our schedule, and I'm not sure if I put that out in an email, but that's what we're gonna do. Okay, cool.
I just want to go back to one thing, I'm sorry.
I was saying, could we add that to the minutes just so we have that somewhere so if I forget? Thanks.
But I just wanted to go back, when we were having the email conversation about open meeting laws, Will did respond, and this is the quote, "It is not a violation of open meetings laws to have email correspondence between LTRC members. Of course, no formal action can be taken outside of a meeting." So we can discuss things. The majority of discussion should be in public as often as possible, but we don't have to worry about violating the open meetings laws if 7 people are on an email. Because we have to be able to get information from point A to point B. It's just taking action has to be busy.
Okay.
Okay, so
We're on 6 still.
6A.
Community impact analysis.
Which is kind of
We
short.
did.
We talked about that.
So.
We talked about 2. Okay, and so now we're on to 7. I think.
Outreach, Facebook resources. Okay.
So, I know one of the things, well, it's actually 7B, so let's talk about 7A first.
Okay, so did we delegate the whole, like, how do we get a Facebook page thing? I mean, I know we talked about it briefly, like, 2 meetings ago, and wanting to do that, and also wanting to get an email.
Well, yeah, the email, I remember we talked, we didn't get that yet either.
I think that it probably would be wise for us to hold off on doing a Facebook page until we've got a really good, or at least a better grasp of what we can do and what we want to recommend to other people, what we want to recommend to both tenants, landlords, to community members when it comes to housing issues. Now, I did, with that in mind, I know you were very excited about the college websites that tell students how to mop the floors in their rentals.
Oh, yeah, right.
I did find several, a few different examples of like how to be a decent tenant. Websites that are put out by different communities and different colleges, and I was thinking maybe I should just forward those sites to Alex and then she can distribute them to everybody. But I don't think SUNY New Paltz has generated anything like that, and judging by the number of universities that have, they're way behind the curve. So if we don't put it out there, we should be encouraging SUNY New Paltz to put it out.
Was one of them Ethica?
Yes, I did see one from Cornell.
Well, Ethica has a very good site for students who are looking at renting.
What
Good.
say,
That, our New Paltz is quite lacking.
Yeah.
what say you?
What
Because-
say I?
Well, all of you,
I
royal you, what say y'all? Blending the very proper with the very proper. We add that to the whole booklet content.
Oh, it absolutely should be.
And then, because we were ideally, and what we had discussed before, because I had met with Ray Schwartz, who at the time was Dean of Student Affairs, and Victoria Crossover, and discussed with them about SUNY New Paltz basically putting their fancy stamp on it, so it'd be kind of a joint, which is how it originally was. The documents that I blatantly plagiarized were put out by the Village of New Paltz and SUNY New Paltz together. So, putting the old team back together, and they were willing to like email it electronically out to all their off-campus students and like all of this great stuff. So I would love to go that way, and then we can add all that to it and get it all done.
Anything to do with paper is probably worthless and not worth the money to do it now.
It's
Everything
tricky.
electronic, that's the only way I don't even do my leases on paper anymore.
But at a point when we have a website up, can't we get all these things?
Yeah,
on
get
the
all
board?
these
We're
things,
working
yeah,
on that.
on the website, yeah,
Your
absolutely.
pamphlet,
Yeah.
If we can do
Want to see
that,
that first thing.
because they're much more proficient, the younger tenants, because I don't want to exclude families, we're still doing paper, but for the younger tenants, they're much more proficient with electronic conversations than they are with paper anymore.
The New Paltz Housing Bulletin Board, that's run by New Paltz, is it not?
It is. They have
I mean, I would love for them to have a separate tab on there. Before you rent, and us putting, once we have our ideas down, having that be there, because the amount of people who are on there is incredible.
Yeah, they also have a
They've talked
disclaimer that says, you know, the university is not responsible, or does not, isn't like condoning any of these tenants or landlords, or
Not-
don't
not
have
about
any.
condoning,
That's not
it's
true,
about-
just having information.
It's actually not true,
It's
because
the
there's a page
information,
on
and I'd
there.
be
Are you
more
talking
than-
Talking
about
international
that?
studies where
No,
they list
off-campus
17
housing.
landlords in New
Yeah, well,
Paltz.
no,
That's
it's a
not
website.
it, it's a bulletin board.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
Yep.
New Paltz,
Well, but otherwise they're talking about-
Student Housing Bulletin Board. But I would be more than happy to work with the college on that.
I've
'Cause
tried, but if you can get through, that's awesome, because I've been trying for years and years and years, and they've just been complete pushback.
That's the,
Yeah,
I
it
would
wasn't
love to see
condemned, it
somebody
was
try
just
again.
them saying we're
See,
not
that's how you do it.
advertising.
I'll find
You know,
out
whether you're
what their
renting, looking for
pushback
rent,
is.
whatever.
I'll tell you something that, if you search on, I only found this by accident, if you search on the homepage of the New Paltz, at newpaltz.edu, you'll come up with one link that actually goes to the International Studies Department, and it lists about 17 landlords. It advertises for those landlords on that page. It's not part of the bulletin board. And I called them to
Can you
find
send
out.
me that?
I will.
That's
Let me write it
I,
down.
I,
Yeah,
I
because
I
if you-
can
I'll
on
look
that.
at that for sure.
The college, I don't know how it was presented, but I'd be more than happy to talk to them, because it's a service that they need.
Yeah.
I don't even update that but every couple of months now, because I don't get traffic off of there like I do on my other media.
Well, that's
Yeah.
neither here nor there, but a lot of students do use it, and I think it would.
It could be better. If it was better, I would use it
Well,
more.
of course.
Right,
If you could help
Anyway,
them
I
get
think
better, that
this-
would be great.
We would ask them, because we're trying to look out for all renters, not just students, but Ithaca College had a great site about all the things that they should be aware of before they sign a lease, and I was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah. The trick is though getting them to actually look at it.
Oh, well,
Listen,
once-
it-
But, you know, whether they're gonna have it on paper or on thing, it's, yeah, that's.
social media, you know, it's
Yep.
it's like I was saying, they're all so digitally oriented. Once there is some sort of a document that has the information, and we have a Facebook page, then at that point we can post it to college accounts that it's gonna get seen by students, and maybe they click on it, maybe they don't, but at least we're getting it.
I'd be very interested in making sure that it's seen by landlords, so that the landlords can say, look, here's the site, this is what I'm expecting you to be able to do in my property, and you do this stuff and you'll very likely get your deposit back. So here you go, kids, you know, and or adults or families or whoever's renting, but I think it's just as important for landlords to have access to that as it is for the
That's an
tenants.
excellent point. It might be more effective to have the landlords be informed about it. That way they can go out of their way when they're signing a lease to
So
direct their
this is the
tenants to it.
criteria.
I mean,
yeah.
wouldn't it be good to have it kind of attacking from both angles,
Oh,
especially
the
so
more
that,
angles, the better. But
Yeah.
that's an angle that I personally
Yeah.
am thinking of.
Well,
I think it would be good if
It's
students.
education on both sides.
Right,
also-
but I-
Donna, I heard, listen, I use a checklist, Donna used a checklist. I have a checklist for every room. Tenant has to get it back to me within 72 hours with everything that's wrong when they check in.
Mhm.
I then have the next 4 days, this is just what I do, to fix everything. Once it's fixed, we then do the checklist again. Take a picture of each room.
You know what, I've lived in 3 separate rental properties in New Paltz. Never have I had a landlord with a system like that. That
But
makes good sense.
It's just, it protects both people.
Yeah.
And when they move out, because it's like you said, everything's electronic. They signed it, I send them an electronic copy of what they signed, and I have it, and I have the pictures. And there's no, I mean, I heard your story last month that you've been in 7 apartments and 6 of them you got nothing back. I would love to put that checklist on our site. Here is what you should do. Instead of just talking about it, here's a resource. Simple. It's going to alleviate a lot of the problems.
That book, that all the things that your responsibilities are, they're in my lease.
It's one thing to be in a lease. All of our leases are a mess. They're in small font. We fit in as much as we
Nobody
can.
read those things, yeah.
For the most part. Nobody reads them. But having a checklist that anyone can understand. Hey, this is what's wrong. This is what's broken.
As well, I think it would also play to students really well if it's kind of like read this, to to cover, well, let me use a different phrase, read this, if it was kind of like made clear that it is something that could be a good resource for kids who are anxious about moving out. It's like, this is how not to get in trouble without knowing that you're doing something wrong, or something to that effect. Obviously would be phrased a lot different, it would be phrased differently, just for whatever reason. What I hear is like a lot of people just do not read the leases ever, and then are sort of surprised when they do something and they're like, I didn't know that I couldn't do that, and it was like, well, it wasn't in your lease.
It's in letters this big.
Right.
And it says, this is how to get your security money back. And then it follows for about 5 pages.
All right, well, that would have gotten my attention, so I don't know. I don't know what more you can do.
Wait, is it all in that size cheesy?
No, actually.
This is how not to lose money.
My lease is in size 14.
Who doesn't read that?
The letters are
But
huge.
yeah, we
that's,
could put, again, it's education.
Yeah.
And if the landlords know what's going on. The biggest issue that I see is the students who are right now looking for apartments for next year.
Yep.
Because most of the good ones are taken.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are desperate. And now it doesn't matter what the lease says. I need to find a place. There's no place on campus. I got to find the closest place possible. And those are the people who really need the protection.
Yep.
And that's why I would love for us to have, when somebody comes in, we should ask as a council to be at alumni or at orientation.
I would love that.
Transfer student orientation. We should have a pamphlet that says here.
We talked about
I've
that.
gotten kicked out of the orientation.
Really?
Yes, I did. Wow. Twice.
For
Is they don't
trying to
give-
distribute information about this?
No, actually, I went there with flyers for housing, and I was attaching them to the legitimate boards. This is, before.
Yeah, but it's got to be approved. It's got to be approved by the
Yes, they
student
approved.
association.
They didn't back then, but just they had outdoor boards to put, things on. And they were
Anyway, I just would love to.
We talked about that, and we were looking into when that was going to be, and honestly, they don't give transfer students hardly any information about anything, which is
They don't even tell them they're not going to have housing till
right,
it's
right.
That's
No, but
true.
you do still get a thing an email every week that says keeping you updated. Transfer students, it's always like completely useless information.
Yeah.
So tell me if I'm completely crazy here, but after the flow chart or whatever we're calling it, after we get some of the things strategized, part of the education, maybe I'm jumping ahead of the agenda, but part of the education factor needs to be visibility. I can see this being something that at different New Paltz events, there's a table set up, like here's the Landlord-Tenant Relation Board. Here's the information that you might need. Here's a little box where you can drop off your issues or concerns or whatever that you might want to bring before the board. And hey, let's talk about some of what's going on.
Well, that's the whole thing.
But I mean, out there, like, as part of the regatta day, as part of,
Any community-based day,
Yeah.
People are coming in to see the sites, and they might like to live here, and they might need to
That's the
know
other
some
thing.
information.
Yeah, for people who aren't already here, but also for people who are here and are having issues here.
Yeah, I don't think that's jumping the gun. Well, I mean, I think
It's jumping the
once
gun from
we
where
have
we are now.
yeah, exactly. Once we have these materials
once we're
updated
ready.
in line and everything's, we got ourselves in line, our ducks in rows and things like that.
Regatta, ducks, I see
Then we
what
can
you're
see what community events would be great for us to be able to, and then also, holding our own educational events,
Yes.
So there's that too, once we feel like we're in a good.
And that's the education. I think we should have a Facebook page now
Really?
where nobody can leave a comment. Where it can just be,
Those can be done.
where it can just be a message. If you have an issue, message us.
Yeah.
Once we have an email.
I think we should.
You don't have to have an
We don't
email.
have that many.
Oh, right,
We
you
can
did,
do it
no,
on
you can message
Facebook.
the,
So
We
Well,
researched
which
this
one
as part of the
percent?
social media policy. I had originally written it that comments couldn't be made, but Alex then did some research into it, and apparently you cannot disable comments.
On a page.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't. I can talk to Facebook.
Oh.
You,
On a
Yeah.
group
you
You can
can,
disable
because
comments
you,
on a private page, but not on a group
you-
page, I think.
on an individual post, but not.
You could sit there and stipulate
Yeah.
that any comments will be deleted.
Right.
And just,
You can do a blurb, is
Right.
like the way I do it.
this is a venue for people to pass comments on to the village, to the council. Any comments left on this page will be deleted. Please message us so we can reach out to you, something along those lines.
Yeah, and I'll share that policy with you guys. It's just in the process of being edited. It doesn't make any grammatical sense, but you'll get it tomorrow.
But then don't you have to have somebody
There's
policing
no
it every
way
day,
to
every
make
hour?
a new page that
Well,
doesn't have
we would
comments.
all most likely
Oh,
be
yeah, that's-
involved in it.
I mean, we
You'd
can
get
make a new page,
get
but
alert.
you cannot disable comments. It took like 3 months. We worked on it a lot. Trust me, you can't do it. I'll show you.
All right, yeah, I'll save that for a later discussion.
But yeah, I wouldn't want to have, I would like for us to have a page where we disseminate information and not give people a venue to bash anybody for whatever reason, whether it's valid or invalid.
All right, let's
Once we've
move
got
on.
the information to get out there.
All right, so
It's coming.
we kind of knocked off, I think, most of the rest of the things already, except for the assistant apps or communications for council members. Council members.
Where are you?
Which we need.
What number?
8C.
8C. I mean, look, just to make sure we didn't gloss over anything, but there's other.
Well,
which-
okay, and we're not gonna, we're not gonna do any apps, so.
So we just, we discussed
Oh,
open
we
meetings
can do
law, agenda creation timeline, how to effectively and ethically communicate between meetings, so now,
Sounds like we can
And we're
email.
gonna do emails, yeah.
Yeah. but we have a member who has issue, like,
Right.
has trouble, so what can we do?
You can read it, you just can't type it?
I can't really read it. It's like reading. I couldn't, for the life of me, keep up with all the email threads.
Well, I couldn't either.
But yeah, because it physically hurts for me to hold my phone up, and it hurts in all these. It hurts for me to use computers. I think it's just something I'm gonna have to figure out on my own. And honestly, I've been talking so much to the Disability Resources Center that I'm kind of a little.
Well,
Do you have
it's a text to voice. If you, I don't know if you can manage this, but if you can copy the text of the message and plug it into a text to voice program, it'll read the message to you.
Right.
Do you have? Is that
I
something you
have.
can do?
I've been playing around with like a bunch of different ones, and it's just kind of been a long
Do you have a computer at
process.
home?
I have a laptop.
Okay,
Yes.
do you have, what might work out for you, and I use them, because I have hearing issues and problems. One of the things that I do when I can't read on the computer screen is I fax them all to, it's a, the HP triple play kind of all-in-one.
Scanner fax thing.
Scanner fax, exactly.
Fax printer, yeah.
And I can bit fax them from my computer and they'll print it automatically. Or actually now I don't even fax them anymore because my computer's Bluetooth to my printer and it doesn't even have to have those other functions and you can print them out on paper if it's easier to read.
Why not print directly from the email?
That's what I'm saying. Like she can print them directly from the email to the Bluetooth without having to try to read it. You could do it from your phone. You know, you don't even. I printed all this out from my phone because my computer, the control button got stuck. I'm waiting. Don't
It's just like, first I need to like have money to buy a printer first. So it's sort of like I can't, I think I don't think it should be on the agenda. I think I should, it's my
Well,
issue,
we
I
can
gotta
also
work on it.
talk-
Just, I guess it's good for everyone to know.
We can exchange
Yeah,
phone
yeah,
numbers,
but I'm
which-
like, I'm seriously, like, I'm pretty tapped out on going through suggestions.
So if anybody
Why
has
don't
to
we-
say,
why don't you-
pick up the phone and do it the way we used to do it.
Right, I was
Yes,
gonna say,
that
why
would
don't
be
we
lovely.
exchange phone numbers and we
Yes.
can also, if there's like, if I notice there's some emails, we can call each other, I can like read them to you. or
That would
tell you
be
what's in
great.
them. We
That
can,
would
we
be
can
great.
work this out. I don't even know why we haven't exchanged numbers already.
Right,
That's
can you
just-
send that out? Alex, can you compose a list of everyone's phone numbers? And I think we have everyone's email addresses, but I'm not sure who's who half the time.
I almost never use
And
it.
like, I'm in the process of making the dictation program work, and which apparently I have to use to my voice, and there are other things that involve money, so that's a slow process. Well, slower than if it were for
If I
resource.
have an extra printer would you like it?
Sure, if it's absolutely, if it's
Yeah.
compatible.
What kind of phone do you have, or computer?
Apple
It has
phone.
Bluetooth though, right?
Yeah.
Because I have extra printers that come free with a computer sometimes or something. If I have
That'd be
one, I'll
great.
give it to you.
That would be great.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, let me know.
While we're talking about disabilities, I don't know if you all noticed, I see you're like an owl. I have a very hard of hearing, and I read lips quite well, and if I'm not looking at you and you say something, I don't hear you, or if you're talking and he's talking at the same time.
Okay.
So, but your voice is actually, I can hear you when you're sitting next to me, so it's not an issue. But
I won't yell then.
if I appear to be ignoring or not hearing, please, I stutter and my hearing is not quite what it should be, but I can read lips very well, so.
Well, we're being honest, I should probably say I'm
Huh?
also half deaf. I use that joke all the time. It's a deaf person joke. But yeah, I'm also half deaf, so same thing. If you say something and you think I'm ignoring you, throw something at me.
I know that if I get to the end of a meeting and I have a stiff neck, it's
I was wondering if I had startled you a couple of times. So no, okay, good to know.
So it looks like the last thing, unless
I'm on.
my tired eyes are deceiving me, is, yeah.
Yeah.
So now, how do we wanna,
I would like to move that we reopen the discussion of the Tenant Protection Act that we voted on last week. No, last meeting, I mean.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yay. Okay, so we voted on two separate items, but in light of new information, we may need to revisit what we recommended to the board, which of course hasn't, or what we proposed recommending to the board.
Yeah, I don't think there was any recommendation.
If I could make a suggestion.
Yes.
I don't believe, and maybe Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe we need to be so formal in coming up with a list of recommendations. We can talk about it, take a straw poll to get an idea of where people's, where people lie on issues, but you can work it out, get a sense of things, and then at the end of the process say, okay, this is where we're at, and then vote collectively on one set of recommendations to send to the board, instead of one by one by one. If you can't come to a consensus on something, it's completely okay to say, village board, on this piece of the legislation, we were not able to come to a consensus, and say exactly why. And then we can take that information to the board and we can.
Is the board sounding, okay, I haven't been watching the board meetings lately, that's my husband's job. Is the board in any way indicating that they're interested in moving forward with the Tenant Protection Act?
I am hesitant to speak for other members of the board, so I will speak purely for myself. I have said on many occasions that I would not support the Tenant Protection Act as it was written. And I think that was part of the idea, was to find out what this group would support and then bringing it back to the board. And the other part of it is the board could look very different by the time we even come up with a set of recommendations, because there's, going to be, at least one board member is not going to be on the board because he's not rerunning. So we don't even know who the board's going to be as of June 1st.
Dennis, I would imagine the village attorney has looked at this.
He has.
Is there, before we go through each of these item by item, is there anything that he has said that state law supersedes this, or is this all on the table? Because I would like to know that.
I don't want to restrict this group from saying, oh, this is what we would like to do. I would like the group to come to a recommendation, because I'm the liaison, I'm trying not to lead the group.
I don't want you to lead, I just want to know if the village attorney has.
For me, I know Tim had the village attorney look at it. I knew immediately I would not support it, and I go out of my way to not waste retainer time on something that I know I'm not going to support. So Tim may have more feedback for that, but I know we'll have some serious problems with some of the pieces.
So I understand what you're saying. You don't want us to waste time on something that's just going to be, well, you can't do that, right? That's part of it.
I would like to be able to prioritize
Yeah.
what we're looking at, to sit there and say, you know, there's some things on here that the attorney said, there's no issue, and let's try and tackle it.
Part of why I'm hesitant to restrict the group on this is because the attorney may say, I don't like this because of the way it's written, but the group may say, wow, the goal of that is really a goal that we should be shooting for. So then at that point I can say, okay, well, if maybe the language doesn't work, how can we get that goal accomplished? How can we get into the end zone that you're trying to accomplish whatever the group feels you want to accomplish?
Right, but is that the chicken or the egg?
It is, and one of the things that I'm learning as I deal more and more with attorneys is when they tell you you shouldn't do something, there is sometimes a way to actually get it done. It's just a matter of finding out how to get it done. So I would personally prefer that the group comes up with what they would like to accomplish, and then we can work with the attorney on how to accomplish that. You know, I'd rather start with a wider view and then narrow it than letting the attorney narrow the view for us and having to push it back wide.
So,
But if
do
you
we
guys want
need
me to bring it
to-
to the attorney, I'll gladly do
do
that.
we need to officially retract the things that were in the previous minutes?
I don't think,
Or the recommendations? No.
it was the conversation that was had. I think
But
it
votes
should
were
be-
held.
Yeah, we kind of said
Votes
yes.
were held.
But there were votes on individual pieces and how to, and.
And how to
Yeah,
And
word
it's
it.
just saying that
I
we
think
like.
the only thing that you
Anyone
voted on
can
was the
make a
security
motion.
deposit,
Okay.
right?
You
It
can-
was just a security
There were
deposit.
there were two things that we voted on. There was
What
security deposit.
And the other
One
one
was
was.
the
The-
growth of the
The timeliness of
return.
returning the security
Yeah.
checks. And then when we got around to the
Oh, and the
security
credit,
cap,
the
we
credit.
said, we
Credit.
finally said no.
Credit
to
checks.
that.
The one
That was
thing
actually
that's
one
hard
thing I
was
really
that-
liked.
Sorry,
Pardon?
say that again?
I mean, you all have it in your minutes. The one like really unanimous quick part of that was banning credit checks.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was all for
Right,
that.
so that's definitely something that we would love the lawyers to find a way to make happen.
Yeah.
So it
Well,
was,
I have never done a credit check.
I don't either.
Yeah, and a lot don't,
Good for you guys.
but some do. And I have a feeling a lot of it tends to be more like the larger
That's-
developments and stuff
That's
like that.
exactly what it is, because I've
Um,
spoken to a couple of them, because when I was listening to the conversation from the last meeting, we really tend to focus on the one-offs, the landlord with the one property or the two properties. And there are other landlords who own multiple and do a very good job, and how that's gonna, that's part of your community impact.
Right.
We're looking at things on how it might impact one or two landlords, as opposed to how it would affect larger landlords who do a good job.
Right.
So,
Well, and with that, I mean, there's nothing stopping a landlord from asking for proof of income. Like showing, you know, that having
Pay
a tenant,
stub.
showing that they can pay rent, you know, bank account, whatever is acceptable forms of, because I've had landlords that have done that, like, oh, I would like to, you know, or a letter from your employer, just something showing that you are gonna have the money, you know, but credit checks is a whole different animal.
So-
well, references go to
But-
that, address that as well.
Right, totally, yeah,
so
absolutely.
we.
Wait, what about references address the issue?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like there's more research that we feel like we need to do before, and so so we've just basically reopened the discussion of
The whole
yeah. You know, I mean, like, there's the things that, do we feel comfortable with everything else that we voted on in that meeting still, or is, as far as credit checks and then the return of the security deposit within 2 weeks?
No,
or
we
like
need
the-
to the 2 weeks thing, yes, but
So we feel good about, or we
the
want to
limit on the security deposits, that was the one that was the real
That's
issue.
that's where I said, I'm not ready to.
But
make
the,
a-
The return of security deposits, that we would like to see, if there's no issues, that security deposits are returned within 2 weeks. If there is an issue, the landlord needs to notify the tenant within those first 2 weeks and rectify within 30 days, and then send the remainder back. That's roughly how I remember it going down.
That sounds right.
But
That's what it was.
so we have a Tenant Protection Act that was presented to us. I would like for us to start our own. All right, that's one.
Yep.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the first one that I think you all agreed on. From what I heard, I don't have any issue with it. I spoke to some of the larger landlords here, that's their policy, that's
Right.
what they do.
Yep.
As far as.
Well, I don't do the intermediate notification, but I would be happy to,
But,
unless, you know.
but I
there's
would
a
like
box.
for us to start with our
Yeah.
own, and then, you know what, I can cross that off here. What's the next thing we want to address, and then have our own document.
Well, I think that
Yeah.
Dennis is right too, if we pull out, if we pull out of here the things that we like, that we can create out of them,
That's what we were.
makes much more sense than.
That's what
Yeah,
we're doing,
that's
is
what we
Celeste had
Right.
taken out the credit checks from her draft of the law, and we're like, well, we like that, we're putting
Yeah.
it back into our desired
Version of
list.
that.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but can we reframe the focus of it from the Tenant Protection Act to something that's more equitable on both sides, Tenant and Landlord Protection Act, or I don't know how to phrase it, but it seems very,
The
Bias.
a little
landlord
biased.
is-
Well, I mean, not
the
landlord
tenant-
protection, but
The
you know what I
tenant
mean.
landlord act, I mean, that's really what
tenant
we're
landlord
looking at.
act.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Call it whatever you
Yeah,
want.
when this first came up, what I said was I didn't understand a lot of the requirements that were being put in here, because there were already things that had been addressed by law, by building departments. I believe what, in the complete text, that it says something about you must have an operating furnace or something. Well, of course you do. So why does that need to be in here and become law? And the other point that I have is, I think a lot of this should be left between the tenant and the landlord via the lease. If I want to sublet, I'll sublet. You want to rent from me so you can sublet, you do. If somebody else doesn't sublet, well then you don't sign a lease with them. It's between the tenant and the landlord, and I don't understand why this has to become a governing body for stuff that should just be a contractual agreement between two people.
I think because my concern is that a lot of, you know, having been a tenant, and, you know, looking forward to the day that I do want to rent out my house maybe at some point, then my concern is that there may be one or more of those parties who's not really paying attention to the details, or not really understanding what they've signed, and the other party taking advantage.
Well,
And that's why we need something like this to cover those loopholes, because especially in this town, we've
Yeah,
certainly.
but
I don't think you
you're
could-
right, Donna.
mhm.
We have 4 houses, been doing it for 18 years. Comes down to people.
Mhm.
You don't need these laws. You handshake, you just do like Donna says, the furnace is no good, you go fix it. We don't even call the people that rent from us tenants, they're neighbors, we live on the property.
Well, absolutely.
And I don't want to have a document like that that makes it so inhuman. You have to have that person, and if they don't read it, look, if they, we don't do students, but if they're younger people, make sure you say, hey, did you read this? Did you check this off? Are you aware of this? And make it known to them.
I understand what you're saying, and I love the fact that you approach your tenants humanely. I think that's really something that's
Well, you
really
should.
critical.
They've got people
Absolutely, you
living
should.
there.
That's why we have laws, though, is because a lot of people don't.
Well, you can't legislate maturity and responsibility.
Absolutely not. I agree, but you can put in safety nets for when people are not being
Well, that's
Well,
what the
this is
safety
not a
nets say for
safety
the
net, this
landlords,
is
too.
abusive.
Listen, that's just somebody's recommendation, all right?
Yeah.
There's some good
That's
things,
why-
there's some good things in there, and there's also some things that are currently in the law. I know this law like the back of my hand.
Which one?
129, that's the housing standards.
Right.
Have you all read this?
I've glanced at it, I haven't read it.
I mean, if a property owner knowingly rents a property found physically lacking of one of the more of the following: running water, heat, electricity, sanitary facilities, windows and sleeping spaces, cooking facilities, smoke, carbon monoxide, or there is a presence of black mold, the property may not be rented until remedied and a reinspection completed. The landlord is actually responsible for putting the tenants up at a hotel.
Right.
We have
We have
the
the law
laws on the books now. And this is what I said to the board when I was interviewed. I understand why this Tenant Act is there. Let's focus on the laws that are currently on the books. We can, a bunch of these can be stricken because they're already there.
And then it comes down to a matter of education.
Well, it comes down to a matter of education. We have, the village hired more help from the building department. They have more resources now than they did 18 months ago. Yes, there are bad tenants out there. It will be addressed. But you know, like I said, there are some things on here we should look at. A couple good points. When I went through it, you know, my highlighted is the ones I have the issues with. But there's a bunch of things in here that I said, spot on, yeah. They should be there. And people should be held accountable. But that's where you talk about the education.
Also, we have a member of the community who brought up something to us today, which may or may not belong in the same part of all of this, but as far as like the landlord saying, oh, go talk to the police, and the police being like, oh, okay, well, there's clearly something that's missing there. Is it in the village code that is missing? Like, where is that? So after we talk to a police officer, like a representative from the police department, we'll get a better understanding, but maybe there's something that could be added to village code that would make it easier for the police to know how to deal with, you know, and it doesn't, not necessarily like, you know, male against female. It could be also, you know, it could be any tenants who live together where there is an issue of harassment or, because I mean, that's a thing.
You know,
Sure,
if I can, as a landlord, I've always held myself responsible for the noise my tenants make.
Right.
But I like it now that, I think one of the things I said in my interview was now there's a law that makes it easier for this group to say, no, that was there, and the police can deal with it. And there are a lot of landlords who are adverse to the being responsible for the noise their tenants make. Let me tell you something. If we're going to be responsible for somebody screaming in the street, I certainly want to be responsible for somebody who's sexually assaulting my tenants.
Right.
I don't even understand how that can happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that. We also have a lot of absentee landlords too, which is also, you know, an issue.
But this also comes down to the community thing, because it's not just if you're living in the house and your housemates are noisy, who takes care of that. It's also if you're living next to the house and you know you're the neighbor in that community, and the landlord on the property doesn't want to do anything, you know, isn't interested in losing the rent. And in fact, I was told in this situation, I was told by the landlord, I can't do anything about this. They have a lease.
About making the noise.
Yeah.
You put right in the lease, we put in ours at this quiet time.
Yeah, but he's well, then we've got the noise ordinance. Whether or not it's quiet, whether or not it's in the lease, there's a noise ordinance. They keep breaking the noise ordinance, or they kept. It was fine. But the landlord's saying, there's nothing I can do about it. They have a lease. So I'm thinking there's something broken there, but no matter how many times the police were called, nothing got better.
Yeah,
I will say that the landlord did learn that if you put noisy tenants in there, you're going to get a lot of hassle from the neighbors, and no longer puts noisy tenants in there. But that was a long learning process.
Yeah. But again, all of the landlords who are here are locally, and we care. And yes, there are quite a few. So when things happen, and the noise is, that's a police issue, unfortunately. There's only so much they can do. But, you know, if we have landlords who live in New Jersey, they have to have a property manager who lives within 15 miles of here. So, you know, the law that was passed, it was, you know, last year or the year before that the village enacted, had some teeth.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily need to give them more laws, but one of the recommendations we absolutely can and should do is go to the village board and say, why aren't these being enforced?
Right. Are we talking about noise right now?
I'm talking,
any kind of.
My niece rented a house, sight unseen. And when she came up here for school, my sister called me up, she was crying. She was in a house that was set up for 4 people. There was 10.
Mm-hmm.
She had one of the basement bedrooms. And in her closet, when we opened up her closet, it was entirely black. Mm-hmm. It was all black mold. And when I was able to finally get in touch with the landlord basically said, well, I'm not doing anything about it. Mm-hmm. Now, I knew the proper procedure. I marched right down here. asked the building inspector to go up there and look at it, and a bunch of the issues were rectified. Goes back to the education. The kids who are renting need to know how to handle issues as they arise. Not wait till the end when they're not getting their security deposit back. It's
true, but we don't have a building department type entity that deals with violence or harassment in roommate situations.
Well, that's where
we have the police.
But the police are going to come, and maybe we can address.
But if they don't have the tools available to them in
Excuse
the
me,
law.
thank you very much. I really have to go,
Yes.
but I think
Yeah,
you're
I
a
think we
good
all need to
start.
go.
You're a good
Thank you
start.
very much.
Thank you for having me.
I would like,
Next meeting.
in the interest of getting out of here perhaps.
But I feel I just want to finish
Yeah,
really
okay,
quick,
sorry.
just that, well, after we talk with the police, we'll know, but if that's something I think we need to seriously talk about. If the police don't have what they need in the law to deal with this, and landlords, some landlords, sorry, I don't want to, and some landlords refuse to help, then, you know, that's something we need to really take
There
on.
has to be something, there has to be something somewhere that is a law that they can, because there's hate crimes, there's anti-defamation, there's so many things that, there has to be something that we can find that can focus on that, because I'm gonna not sleep well tonight.
All right, so for our next, I'm sorry.
Just, I would like to make the suggestion that we don't focus so much on the Tenant Protection Act per se, but maybe for the next meeting, everybody come back with whatever issues or items you think the village board needs to address.
Right.
And then we can use that to create a new document, because
I like that.
I'm not a fan of
Right, and
the
let's call
existing
it the-
document, because so much of it is, like you said, already existing law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That let's figure out what needs there are in the community, and then we'll go about addressing those needs.
Well, and again, I just want to piggyback on that. Everyone, read 129 and look at what's already addressed. And if there's anything in there that is near and dear to your heart, try to do a little research on what other communities are doing, and let's try and build a consensus. And like you said, next meeting, the elections are over, right?
So we'll know who we're dealing
Are
with.
they-
We'll at least know who we're dealing with, and then
So it's
Alex, is it possible to have 129 linked
come back from the village
send
website.
out the
Oh,
minutes?
village, okay.
What? Is it never mind, actually, forget I said that. I just rethought that.
Did anybody motion to adjourn?
Nobody motioned to adjourn yet, you want,
I can't.
you can't.
I mean, I can do it, but it
I would-
has to be also.
I'd like to motion that we should adjourn the meeting.
I will second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Oh, heck yes.
Thank you very much.
Aye,
It was a
aye.
lovely
You can
meeting.
say as long as you want. Alex will lock you in.
Yeah, thank you.
now that everything's shut down,
Oh, sorry.
I asked Alex, we're not really confident whether alternates can vote.
Well, I think they